Blog Talk Radio. Hello, Type 1ers out there. We're back again on the air for another Type 1 radio show. Unfortunately, Jake Kotze couldn't be with us today, so sad news. No.
We love you, Jake.
We were all really looking forward to that, weren't we?
Yeah.
We got the sad news. Jake couldn't make it. So unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, it's just us here in our cozy little chat room. We've just synchronistically found ourselves all together. There's
with Reset.
With Reset, that's right. Yeah. Hi, Reset. How are you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Not too bad, actually. A bit tired, but I'm bearing up.
You're here. It's great.
Yeah, I'm here. The spirit is still strong.
The flesh is weak, though.
Not that weak. We've got Steve Gaddafi here with us, and Azoth is joining us as well.
Hiya.
Azoth?
Yes, Azoth.
Azoth. Universal Solvent. It's my friend's freedom name. You can call me Vic if you like. I don't mind.
And if anyone out there wants to call in, the number is 646-716-6201. Call in if you like. We'd like to hear from you.
It'll be great to hear from you. And yeah, we know there's quite a few other Type 1ers listening, and so I want to say hi to Artica up in Scotland, who will be listening on the podcast. Hello, Artica.
Hi.
We were hoping to go and visit Artica, but unfortunately his work has sent him in a different direction, so we're not going to be able to meet up. So that's a bit sad. More sad news, oh my God.
No, bad news. It's only going to get better.
So just sorting out our cups of tea here. There we go, we've got to get our priorities right. So what have you been up to this week, Reset? Have you been in your garden?
No, I was telling Steve not too long ago that we got some nice temperatures here, and that it's actually nice enough to be doing gardening. Unfortunately, the snow hasn't melted in our garden yet.
Wow, you have snow there?
Yeah, well, a little bit, yeah, in places. Our garden still has a good couple inches of snow, and so I'm at the point of, wondering whether or not I should go out and shovel the garden or not.
Yeah. So if you've got warm temperatures, has it not melted the snow to a degree?
Well, basically, it's, where the snow had kind of fallen in thinner portions, it's pretty much melted there. But the ground still hasn't really thawed at this point, so the ground is still kind of keeping the snow pretty cold underneath where it had been built up for a while.
Yeah, is that where the drifts are? With the deeper parts?
Yeah, drifts, and really, I don't know, kind of more in like the center of the yard. It's around the edge of the yard and where the bushes are and stuff. I mean, you don't get so much snow building up right there.
Why don't you put your organite oven on it?
What was that?
Why don't you put your organite oven on it? That looks like
you think?
Well, that looks like a snow blower.
That would take forever and cost a lot in electricity.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no point in heating up your garden with electricity when the sun can do it.
I was
as long as it's there.
At the right time.
No, but it's weird. I was telling Steve that we had the nice enough weather right now that you'd love to open your window, but last night looking up in the sky, you could see that they were trailing, and these kind of clouds today where you look up and it's the sky is kind of almost grayed out, but the sun is still shining through the clouds, which lets you know that they're fake clouds, because real clouds block out the sun and give you this crazy thing called shade.
Yep. I know, we see them all the time, these sort of wispy yellow skies.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a completely blue sky to start with, and then within a couple of hours, it's just spread and be. Oh.
It was nice here today,
Yeah,
wasn't it? It
yeah,
was really
yeah. I
blue.
think, like I said, we have been quite fortunate recently. There's been not a lot of, but you know,
The odd day here and there, you'll suddenly go, oh my god.
give it one day and there'll
But-
just be millions of them.
Yeah,
Or trouts.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, they do it at night then.
Yeah,
yeah.
oh definitely, yeah.
I've seen them glistening
Yeah, I've
in
seen
the
them doing
moonlight.
it, yeah. I had a picture of a chemtrail on the full moon once, remember? It never came out, but I took a picture of it and it was like, cause it looked quite pretty actually.
Of them trailing at night?
Quite artistic.
Sorry, we said?
Of them trailing at night you're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, there was a full moon and you could, the silhouette of the plane was going by the moon. And
Was that video you were trying to shoot?
no, it was a still.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was going to say, a couple of years ago, yeah, there was a nice full moon. Kind of sounds like the same setup where there was two trails going kind of right along the full moon, and the picture actually turned out pretty well.
Right, no, mine was just a blur and it could have been, you know, could have been anything.
Have you noticed the moon in your part of the world reset kind of laying on its back?
Okay, now I've heard people talking about this. I haven't exactly noticed that. I've noticed it kind of having a halo around it every now and again lately, but I think that's just, you know, the ice crystals in the air or whatnot.
That
Yeah.
happens naturally.
Yeah, and well, I don't know. I'm kind of wondering. I mean, is this, you know, flattening of the moon or something? Is that some kind of, you know, with this new area of energy we're moving into? Is that kind of?
I kind of think it's the Earth's axis changing.
It looks like the ship.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. You know, is it something about the atmosphere and the way that, you know, what we're looking through? Is it kind of acting almost like a prism, doing something to the way we're actually able to view the moon? You know, as opposed to something happening to the moon itself. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking, is it southwest that way?
Yeah.
Yeah, looking
Yeah.
southwest to us, I'm starting to see, is it Jupiter and Venus at different angles?
I think tonight
Which is quite,
is
it's not Betelgeuse now, is it?
no, tonight is apparently from sunset through the evening in this part of the world. Anyway, I heard on the radio today that you're going to be able to see 4 planets visible with the naked eye across the sky.
Right.
I can't remember which ones they were, like Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and something.
Wow.
That's not really very good information. Just saying, oh, you might be able to see.
You can see
something
millions
that
of
I can't
planets in the sky if you've got a good enough telescope.
No, but this is a phenomenon that you'd be able to see them with the naked eye that you wouldn't normally be able to see.
Okay, here we go. Actually, I just got over to space.com and the weekend sky watching. Saturn forms triangle with moon and bright star.
Whoa.
Is what the headline is. So, honestly, that thing you're talking about, Phi, I think that might have happened this last Sunday.
Oh no, I
There was
definitely
like an
heard it on
alignment.
radio. Oh right. Oh, okay. I don't know about it actually being in alignment, but the thing that came up on the radio. I was sitting in the car just waiting for Steve to come back, and the news was on, and one of the little items on the news was that you were going to be able to see, unusually be able to see these planets with the naked eye, all 4 of these particular planets with the naked eye today. And that was it. Not necessarily that they're in an alignment, but just that you're going to be able to see them.
You can't see them all at once with the naked eye. You have to look in
Yeah,
different
and now
parts.
that you say it, it may not have actually. Don't quote me that it was an alignment. It may have just been that they were the
Visible.
4 visible
Right.
planets
Yeah.
or whatever there.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a couple pictures, and yeah, they weren't in a line. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 pictures where someone was at just the right angle to get them in an alignment of some sort. But yeah, but there have been, you know, planets a lot more of the, you know, closer to, you know, visible to the naked eye, like you're talking about, though.
Yeah. I'll see if I can maybe get something up on the computer and have a look. But I'm a little bit afraid to do too much mucking about in case we crash the show, because often when I try and sort of research things while the show's on, it ends up crashing the show. And but I'll have a little look. Oh, Steve's having a little look now. But as far as the moon going on its back as well, we've actually seen this, and a friend of mine who's not into kind of, you know, looking at things in a different way or anything was staying with us a few weeks ago. And she actually pointed out to me and said, look at the moon, that's odd. And then we started talking, you know, and she was like, yeah, I thought that looked a bit strange. And it really was. It wasn't just... Because normally
the
when...
shadow's been underneath. The actual presence has been underneath. You at the side.
Yeah, because normally when the shadow of the moon comes across and you get like a nice kind of crescent in the sky, but it was almost like it wasn't a crescent, it was just lying on its back and there was just a slice off the top of it.
Yeah.
It was weird, wasn't it?
Wow.
And it's been glowing orange as well.
It was Venus and Jupiter I saw tonight.
Oh, right, there we go, Venus and Jupiter.
And the moon.
So, go on.
Go on, Rita. No, sorry.
Well, I was just quick going to ask about this moon laying on its back, because like I said, this is the first time I've really heard it described like that. And you were talking about it being a crescent. Are you talking about like the crescent being kind of more horn shaped as opposed to
It wasn't
more like a melon.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
shape on its back.
Yeah.
Like a D turns on its side.
Shadow,
Yeah, it was like a D shape on it, but kind of with the...
Okay, and that's really weird because you guys have to, the thing with, people having horns or whatever, like in the Bible or back in the day, I guess that a lot of that is reference to the moon and having that crescent shape.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of weird that it's actually taking the shape of, the horns now as opposed to being, I guess before it would have been on its side if you're talking horns.
Well, funnily enough, when it's crescent like that, it's not so much. It's more when it's 3/4, if you know what I mean. It's more like it's half.
Yeah, and it's phases, right?
I think I've got photos of it on the camera that if we could load them
Yeah,
up, we could put them on the site to look at the end of the show. So, interesting things going on in the sky.
Yeah. Sure.
Although we haven't got Jake on the show tonight, we have actually lined up a little guest. Very kindly, Andrew Johnson has agreed to come on a bit later on after 10 o'clock. So we're going to be speaking to him and we're going to perhaps talk a little bit about sunspots and that kind of thing.
What's Andrew been up to recently? Has he been
well, we'll have to wait until he comes on and find that out.
Okay.
For all of us.
Maybe we could go and have a little tune while we perhaps do a little bit of research. Anything interesting you'd like to put on?
I would like to play the 13th floor elevators and I've Got Levitation.
That was the 13th floor elevators. Levitation. Well, I've been looking up this planet thing, and what the story is that it says, wow, March 2012 is about as good as it gets for planet watching, and that you can see 5 visible planets to the naked eye in March. And apparently they're coming up today. Four of the visible planets, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter and Mars, pop out first thing at dusk. Saturn comes up later in the evening. All of these worlds should be easy to see with the sole exception of Mercury, the innermost planet of the solar system. As darkness falls, Venus and Jupiter blaze away in the western sky, while fainter Mercury lurks behind them. Nearer the horizon, the red planet Mars is found low in the east at dusk and nightfall, beaming as the sky's 4th brightest star after Sirius. Sirius, the brightest star in the nighttime sky, is only a touch brighter than Mars and sparkles in the northern hemisphere southern sky at early evening. So there we go, there's a whole bunch of planets you'll be able to see with the naked eye that you wouldn't...
You can't be serious.
I am serious. Sirius Black.
Yeah. Wow.
So any sky watchers that want to go out tonight, maybe...
Yeah. Is it clear night where you are, Reset, tonight?
Well, sorry, what was that?
Is that a clear night where you are tonight? It's a daytime for you, isn't it?
It's daytime for us right now. I don't know. With any luck, it'll be clear out tonight. Sorry, I was completely distracted by this article I'm reading with the title ISS Plays Role in Vaccine Development.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll be a clear night. We'll see.
It won't be a clear night with all them vaccines, will it?
Yeah.
Let's get them into the sky next.
A huge article. I can't read that right now.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds...
Yeah, it does sound pretty horrendous.
Yeah.
We were promised another sort of swine flu scare, weren't we? Not so long ago.
Well, one of my daughter's friends, she's staying with us, not actually. Ever since she had the jab, she's been ill constantly.
Really?
Do you know what? I know another girl like that as well. Since she had the flu jab last year, she had it last Christmas, and she's the sickest girl in the whole of the
there you go.
The thing is, her mother didn't want it done, and the school went ahead and done it behind the back as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my goodness me. That's not good, is it?
Not really.
Case for a suit there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're just looking at America's secret space plane that's been in orbit for the...
Well, it's the old X-37B, isn't it, that
Yeah.
Freeman was talking about a while ago.
That can
with
get from
its,
Baghdad to Washington in 30 seconds.
With
around
its
that
stealth
time.
capabilities, and no one really knows what it's for, do they? But it's some kind of spy thing? Is it some kind of weapon?
Well, it's some kind of monitoring station.
Well, it's certainly a very interesting piece of machinery. They're
Really?
saying that it was only meant to be up there for 3 months, and it's been there for over a year and 3 days already, and no one knows what it's doing.
That's kind of how a lot of their stuff ends up working, isn't it? Kind of. I mean, those rovers on Mars were only supposed to work for like 90 days. It's been like 5 years or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just space junk.
Yeah.
Well,
Space.
have they shut down the Hubble telescope yet?
I think they keep doing repairs to it to keep it going.
Right. I mean, I read somewhere last year that this year they were sort of decommissioning it.
Yeah, I know there's some plans for some new special telescope. I think that's a couple of years away, so I think they're going to keep the Hubble.
Yeah, well, I heard
don't
the Hubble
quote
was
me.
going to go offline to the sort of public or the academic world sort of thing, and just be used for military purposes.
Yeah, I think that's coming sometime soon, though. I'm not 100% that it's actually happened yet.
Right. So some of those images, if you Google image, some of those Hubble images are absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, no, I posted I think 2 of them to the Space War News group on the Friendship Agenda site, and I mean, you look at it and you almost think you're looking at planets, but I mean, you take it, just look at it for a second, it's like, oh wait, each one of those is a galaxy. That's
Yeah,
not
no,
Oh, wow, yeah.
You know, it looks like when you drop sort of drops a paint into water, and the sort of gaseous blood around it, and each one of them is a galaxy. It's just like, wow, it's quite mind-bending. Absolutely. All over the gaff. I bought a telescope last year, but it's not. So it was only like a $50 one sort of thing, which isn't, it's alright for watching the girls across the way getting changed sort of thing, but not really planets. But yeah, I'd love to see. I've seen a solar powered telescope once, or it was a wind powered telescope. Must have been wind because it was at night I only used it, and it was pretty incredible. But because it was it wasn't on any kind of movement, you had to keep moving it, because it was at a green festival, it was the Big Green Gathering it's called, and you had to physically pick it up and move it. The sky moves so fast, it's incredible.
I guess I've never used a nice enough telescope. What do you need electricity for a telescope for?
Because it was a electromagnetic one. It chucked.
You mean just like
binary one.
Its position?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was static sort of thing, but because I was looking at it, it was like being on the moon. Basically, you could definitely see sort of, very detailed parts of the craters and rocks and stuff like that. It was absolutely amazing. But it kept moving. The moon absolutely, moves when you're doing it. So that's why you see with most telescopes at houses, they're on a mechanism, aren't they? And when they lock on something, they actually turn with the sky, so you keep seeing the image. Ooh.
Yeah. Old Nassim Harriman, he talks about how the infinite of outer space and how you can see these amazing constellations and then see that they're actually galaxies. And he talks about inner space as well, doesn't he? Going in and
Yeah.
looking inside, and
Yeah.
reminds me. Has anyone seen that film Inner Space?
Oh,
that's
space,
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the one where it starts with the universe and it comes all the way
Yeah.
down into the cell of the hand.
Goes into pouring your hand.
So it's a macrocosm and microcosm.
Isn't it? Doesn't it start with a mosquito biting somebody?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and then it goes. Yeah,
that's it for years.
Does it in that film? It starts like that.
Yeah, on someone's hand.
On
then it
someone's
goes,
hand, then it goes in.
Oh wow!
It goes
I've
in, then it
forgotten
goes
that
out
bit.
into the universe and then back into the hand. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Wow.
Mind down.
Yeah, that was a bit of a nanotechnology film, wasn't it? That
Yeah.
one.
That's from the 70s, man. That's from like.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we were shown that at school.
Really?
yeah, I was showing it to school.
Inner Space?
Yeah. You're thinking of this
I'm
film with
thinking-
Raquel Welch, aren't you? And
No, not Raquel Welch. It's with
Martin
some
Short.
goofy American guy.
Well, that's a remake of The Incredible Journey, isn't it?
I've got that.
Okay.
I've got that on DVD the other
The
day.
Incredible Journey with Raquel Welch.
They,
and they shoot him into the eyeball.
they shrink him and
Yeah.
put him in a space capsule and then
They
inject
have to
him
come
into
out
the
through the
guy's
eyeball,
body.
don't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great movie.
Yeah. Donald Pleasant's the baddie.
That's right. Yeah.
Stuck in someone's body and he wants to corrupt it all. He's
Like-
satisfied with being in someone's body and shrunk.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, Jim 420 and Mater X. Hello to you guys.
Hello.
Hope you're having a good one.
Yep, so we're just making it up as we go along
Yeah.
this evening, seeing as we haven't got
Yeah.
our lovely guest, Jake. with us.
Yeah, Jake. We love you,
Oh.
Jake.
We had such great questions as well.
I know.
So have you been watching some of his videos and that? Have you had?
Yeah. Well, I've been listening to most of his podcasts.
Yeah.
He was over here a couple of years ago when
Doing a crop
remember
circle thing, wasn't
Doors
he? Yeah.
Perception one was there. Remember that
Yes, the
crop
Doors of
circle? Oh,
Perception
that was amazing,
crop
that one,
circle,
wasn't it?
yes, yeah.
And so ask him a few questions. I was actually going to ask him about his Stargate theories and how the Jack and Boaz, and when he goes on about the empty space within the towers, how it's actually 3 pillars instead of 2.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, in the
yeah.
Kabbalah,
That symbolises the middle pillar.
Like
the
the,
middle pillar, exactly.
Is that
yeah.
like
That's
the black
Jetstone,
note?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jet
in
pillar.
between the white
Yeah.
note
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was going to ask him because with him being South African, he would obviously know about cricket. So it just came to me the other day that cricket is actually the 3 pillars of the Kabbalah sort of thing, and you try and knock it down with either the sun, which is a round orbit, or red orb, isn't it? Or Mercury maybe. But then I wanted to, and it's also 11 players versus 11 players.
11-11, yeah.
11-11. And of course baseball was, was a bastardised version of cricket sort of thing, and they play in a diamond, and there's 11 players on that team as well, isn't there?
Oh,
11,
right.
11. Got a lot of team sports actually are 11-11.
Doesn't he go into games a bit, or is that computer games?
It's just computer games.
Yeah.
I've never actually, he's obviously not a sport type sort of thing. There isn't many, is it? It's only Kyle Hunt I've ever heard sort of like talking about sport.
I've heard
Anyone?
a few people
Oh, have you?
talking about sports before.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it was, what's his name who died? Rick Clay.
Right, Clay. Well, he only talks about the Olympics, isn't he?
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it was, I can't remember his name now. But yeah, someone was talking about sports, but in a more kind of conspiracy way, and about the focus of the attention on the sport, how that's kind of like an energy gathering
Yeah,
thing,
well
and to focus the attention even not just on the sport, but on one ball,
on one,
so
on
that
one object.
one object, so that all the attention
Well, it also
is on
plays
that.
its part in the dumbing down process,
it's
doesn't
just
it? And
kind
it's
of-
just like
Yeah.
getting people to all.
It's also war of attrition, and everyone has a favourite team, so it's a division between people as well.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
But it's definitely become more important over the last sort of 10 years. The sports coverage has become like, major league news, that somebody would miss a goal and stuff, or somebody would do something, so therefore they're making news stories out of trivial, frivolous, shouldn't use the word trivial, should we?
No, that's
But
what's
real-
from, isn't it? It's
Frivolous sort of, activity sort of thing to be so important, and just Makes you sick.
There's a big push in this country as well with the Olympics coming here very soon.
Yeah.
All the schools, every single school, they're getting involved in things, aren't they? Yeah, they're even getting them doing mini torch bearing ceremonies amongst each other, and it's this whole idea of that everyone's attention has to be on the Olympics, so that when the Olympics start, everyone's attention is there. And it's quite bizarre that they want all the attention there so readily. Maybe that's like a form of energy that can be used. I don't know.
Well, we'll bring you the opening ceremony live on the Type1 radio line, just the way we see it anyway. Wasn't your wife going to carry the torch?
No, someone suggested it. Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. It's been good to run off with it.
Yeah, I'll light a fag with it. A cigarette, actually, for all our American listeners.
I just had a message from Mater X as well to say that, I don't know who it was, but Freighter's guest on his show, unfortunately, has cancelled as well.
Synchronicity happening.
no.
That's Joseph P. Farrell, I believe.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was that who it was going to be this
I think
week?
so, yeah. Cause, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was tonight.
Well, they're playing the Max Egan show again.
Oh, okay. Right.
So that's very worthwhile listening to.
Yeah,
and in fact,
that'll prime you up for.
we'll
We'll be talking to him very soon, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be really good. I'm really looking forward to that one. Good old Max.
Yeah, we haven't heard much fracking news recently around here, have we?
No, it's
It'll die down for a year or two and then it'll come back, won't it?
Well, they're just putting their toe in the water, aren't they? They're just testing how much resistance they're going to have to deal with, and then they shall mount their public relations campaigns and break up the opposition, which is just, a handful of local, well, not a handful, but say you've got 200 locals. For a huge organisation, that's nothing to infiltrate and break up and cause divisions and everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll just have to see how that goes, really.
Yep.
What does that one say? I'm really sure who's on there. Yeah.
No, how's Jay doing? Any news on that?
Yeah, I wonder if anyone has any news on our friend Jay, who's just been in
I heard from him the other day. Last thing I heard was that he was going in on Tuesday to get his staples out of his chest.
Oh, right.
Okay.
So that'll be this coming Tuesday, and from there, like I said, last I heard was he was kind of short. He just kind of came on and told me it was up and then got off. But last I heard before that was that he had about a 3-month recovery to go, probably.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's changed at all. I got to figure it's probably about the same. But
yeah, he told me it was a minimum of 10 weeks, and then probably beyond.
Okay, and I'm not exactly sure how long after the staples he gets to go home. So there's that also.
Wow.
But hoping he's doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a friend of ours, a really good friend of Bichix, went through a quadruple bypass not so long ago, which completely shocked us.
Yeah, the fittest man in the world.
This is a 65-year-old guy who looks about 40, and it's just a genetic thing. So
it was part of his genetic makeup, but luckily he had a heart attack, but he was able to kind of deal with it, and they went to the hospital and they said, oh, you're going to have every entry to your heart taken apart and reworked in some way. They took bits out of his legs, and took veins from his legs to use in his heart and all that. Yeah. But he's amazing, he's up and about now, and he,
Well, that would kill a lesser man of his age anyway.
Yeah. So, these things are...
See, that's the the wonder of modern science, as opposed to last week where we had the flawless science who is prevention rather than cure, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. If you can help prevent these things. But then if you're, predisposed to, within your family, that you've got
if you're going to self-destruct.
Weaknesses at these
Yeah.
points. It's quite helpful if they can put stents and things like that in.
Yeah.
Do you know who invented the stent as well?
I do not know who invented the stent.
Now
Mr. Stent?
no, not Mr. Stent.
What is a stent?
It's like a plastic tube that they put in place of an artery, or to support an artery where they burst, or they have to take,
Right, okay.
not where they burst, but where they have to take take bits out. I was going to tell you the name of the guy, and it's completely gone now. the guy who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. What's his name?
Roald Dahl.
Roald Dahl.
He invented it.
He invented it. Yeah, he's quite an interesting character.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, he was.
Do you know
I remember hearing that somewhere. Yeah, I didn't know it was called a stent.
Yeah.
Arthur C. Clarke invented the satellite, the communication satellite.
Did he invent it in his garage? Like they invented the computers, supposedly.
I don't know. It's just funny that a guy
He
who
just had a few coat hangers, an
And
old wok,
and a rocket just hanging around. Oh, I wonder what I'll do with this.
threw them together.
Well, what's the best one, the stent or the communication satellite?
Well,
One saves
I
lives.
think
Another one destroys one.
well, you can communicate
The
with.
other one allows people to talk bullets.
Well, the Aborigines used to use trees to communicate with one another. They used to be able to go up and, I don't know how they did this.
That's when they're fighting, they were hitting each other with drums. Yeah.
But I talked to the trees. This is what they were doing, and they were using the trees
elementals.
somehow. We'll have to talk to Max Egan about this, because you might know a bit more about that. But
They could communicate with each other on Dreamtime anyway, couldn't they?
yeah.
Well, no, that's his dream time to them.
All right.
And when
the awakened consciousness is Dreamtime.
It's dream time, yeah. And so we can do that. We're doing it now. But yeah.
So maybe the satellite is maybe not that necessary.
No. Would you think it's been there to distract us away from using this brain that we have?
I think that when things are made, sometimes it's good for things to be made a little bit easier for you in your life, but other times it takes away from your natural, like, driving everywhere. If you just drive everywhere, you're going to lose the ability to retain the muscles in your legs and things like this. It's good to walk a lot, so
true,
cars can be useful, but if you use them too much, you're going to actually lose your natural abilities. And I think that, sometimes you can lose your natural abilities by relying on things too much. Like all kids these days have got telephones. Well, I won't say all,
most
most
you were saying
kids.
about using a telescope, why you can't get the satellite image on your phone nowadays anyway.
Yeah. And most people, when they're lost, they'll just reach for their phone and get the coordinates from their phone, which is fine, but it's also good if you can actually get some kind of orientation in your mind and your body of where you are.
Like 20 years ago, or even that long ago, when we used to phone each other on landlines sort of thing, I could remember everybody's number.
Yeah.
I was pretty damn good at sort of retaining telephone numbers in my head sort of thing.
Yeah.
But no, I can't
But now,
remember.
it's all on speed dial, isn't it? Yeah.
Everything's on speed dial, so you just don't have to remember it, and it's definitely wiped my memory.
I've gone out to speed back onto speed dial.
Well, no, you've got it in a phone book, haven't you, on your mobile, so you just...
I don't even know how to use the bloody thing. I hate the bloody things.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. How's your phone getting on reset? Your new one?
Oh.
Come on, man.
Hello? Sorry, what was that?
I was just wondering how your cell phone's getting on.
Well, I don't know. It's a cell phone. I don't know. I don't use it too much.
Good.
I don't know. I honestly do more texting with it than talking. But are you wondering about any kind of one aspect of the phone? I don't know. I was adding.
No, we were just saying we were just talking about how technology is making us a bit sort of dumber, definitely dumbing us down, and how 20 years
Oh,
ago,
yeah.
I could remember like millions of phone numbers. You know, all my friends who I would know their landline number. Right?
No, totally right.
But
The only
nowadays-
number I really have memorized, I guess, is my home phone number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I even have a time with that as well. I just want to say hi to Blue Green.
Who's just joined us.
Who's just joined us. Say hello if you can hear us, Blue Green.
Blue green.
Yeah, he's there.
Blue
Up in
Green.
Scotland.
Blue Green.
Yeah, Project Blue Green.
Yep, he said hello.
Hi.
So,
So should we have another little break and come back to some chat, and then we'll get a hold of Andrew, yeah?
yeah.
So what are we going to go with?
Well, we've got... Oh, I know.
We'll get DJ Steve to line up the tracks here.
There's a little nighttime ditty.
No, we're back! I've just been messing about trying to message everyone on Skype and completely messed it up, so sorry about that, sending 4,000 messages of the same thing.
What did you do?
I've been trying to message people on Skype, and I thought the messages weren't sending, but it seems they were, so I've sent the same message about 5 times.
You on Skype, BG?
Never mind. So,
So what's the sky like out there? You've just been gazing at the stars? What's going on?
actually, there's strange insect activity outside. There's lots of wood lice
Oh, right.
everywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, bizarre.
Hmm.
Very bizarre.
Perhaps not that bizarre. We do have quite a lot of wood lice around here.
Yeah, but they're all scurrying around while they're not asleep. Night time.
Saturday night, though.
Saturday night, yeah. Saturday night with the wood lice. So,
Who have we got on the chat now? So we've still got Blue Green, Reset, Jim.
were you digging the Metallica there? Reset.
Oh yeah, just gravy.
Yeah, we haven't had any metal for a while. I thought we'd better keep the balance going.
I guess that's one way to look at it. Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, sorry, I sent it before.
Sorry, Reset, say that again?
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, with you were saying, metal, even it out. I said, yeah, that's one way to look at it.
So, should we try and get Andrew on?
Yeah, we can try and give him a call now. It's 10 to 10.
Yeah.
You can see if he's around.
Liven things up a bit.
Yeah, sorry for anyone tuning in this evening. We're not the liveliest show this evening.
Yeah.
We've all had quite busy weeks actually, and I think
Yeah. Well, we finished our detox as well, and we're sort of weaning ourselves back onto. So I have actually just smoked the first time. I'm going to
it's
retox
time
yeah.
now. Yeah.
It's we should have loaded up like a virgin actually, shouldn't we?
I don't know if the virgin load up.
You have now.
Yeah.
So
So let's try and get hold of Andrew. Oh, are you calling him
I've
now?
called him, yeah. He's either shy or he's...
We need the trees.
Well,
No, don't touch that.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I don't want to...
What do you want to do?
No, that's fine. I don't want to lose the connection there.
No, I don't. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But, oh, he's away.
He's not around.
Just give him a
He's
quick
probably
shout.
out.
Just see, well, he's nice. Oh, yeah, he's away.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there he is. Yay!
Where is he?
Look, he's here, look.
That's me. That was from 5
Oh,
past
right.
5.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, sorry. Getting mixed up. Yeah.
Oh, no. Where's Sonic as well? He should be around.
Should be coming on soon.
Is he still at his brother's?
Yeah. Oh, his sister's one of the two. He's sort of, I think is it the twins' birthday or something? Or
Yeah, I think something like
some
that.
sort
or
of
something to do with his
He's
brother.
definitely going to be around in a bit though. 'Cause he said about
Yeah.
10 o'clock he'd be around.
But it's quite nice actually, just hanging out for a mellow evening in the lounge, just with a few friends.
Yeah,
and
the lounge has been quite busy of late, hasn't it? With quite a few amazing guests. So
yeah, so it's quite nice just to sort of have
great.
us here really.
Yeah.
And the Skypers.
Yeah. In the chat room.
But not
Blowing away lovely. If Frater Rex was listening, just confirm that it was that
Joe
Farrell's cancelled on you again, if you wouldn't mind. That's a damn shame. So I was looking forward to that as well. We've actually got the Roswell and the Reich book, but it's absolutely it's like
I've read that one.
2 inches thick. Have you?
Yeah. Well,
all of it.
That's not 2 inches. That's not.
No,
that's not as big as Not in His Image. That one.
It's pretty bad.
It's quite small writing, but there's lots of pictures and things as well. But no, I've read about half of that one.
I just finished I finished Don Cross book last week. Reset. It's really mad. The sort of information he's got about gifting on there is just crazy. These cell towers that are everywhere. Well, apparently there's huge ones under the sea, and they're just all over the gaff. Yeah.
Mm.
And he goes on about how when you gift organite into the ocean, the dolphins come and collect it and put it in place where it needs to be. Yeah. Apparently dolphins pick the organite up and swim off with it and put it in the appropriate places.
How do you know? How does anybody know that?
It's in the book. I'm just relaying the.
It must be true.
So if you
in the book.
do the fairies come and move the organite in the garden?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm being cynical. It just
no, it's you have every right to be cynical, because it is quite remarkable what he says.
It does sound remarkable, doesn't it?
But he does back it up with other superficial facts as well. Like how there hasn't been another terrorist attack on the scale of 9/11 since he started gifting. It's true. Name another event that was worse than 9/11, apart from 7/7, of course.
Oh, I hope he doesn't stop gifting before the Olympics then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't Hurricane Katrina suck?
Sure did, yeah.
Wasn't there a tsunami?
But he's saying
like
after.
2000?
He gives examples of after things that there hasn't been, another one since.
Mm.
So he could be hedging his bets, but I think the book's from 2006 as well. So since then there's been not a lot.
Mm.
It's quite. He makes some great claims in it, and he does actually say, don't believe me if you don't want. I know it must be kind of. He says that every other page. I know this must be quite hard to swallow, but this is what's going down.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting.
Great book.
Yeah.
Absolutely fabulous book.
It's watching the dolphins doing a bit.
Yeah, dolphins and orcas.
Because they're pretty lazy most of the time, just having fun, aren't they? Jumping through hoops and stuff like that. It's about time they got down to a bit of work, shifting that organite.
Yeah.
That's weird, you guys bringing up dolphins all of a sudden, because I've been listening to Fritz Springmeier's Deeper Insights to the Illuminati Formula for a Mind Control Slave in audiobook form.
Oh, yeah.
And he had just gotten into, a while ago, the dolphin experiments with, I'm forgetting his first name, but his last name is Lilly. John C. Lilly, I think was the guy's name.
Yeah.
And they, had the, using dolphins and, tanks, connecting those to people or whatever. But other things, getting readings off them. But it kind of reminded me of, the movie Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah. Is that Keanu Reeves, is it?
Yeah, Keanu Reeves was in that. Yeah, they had a dolphin in a tank doing the same kind of thing. And I don't know, have you guys ever seen the show Fringe?
No, I know of it though. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's an American show, but I don't know. Watching it when he first started, just getting into this Fritz Springmeier stuff recently, that show is just complete Illuminati mind control as far as I can tell. I mean, they're using, LSD and, sensory deprivation tanks, and there's like alters. I don't know. It seems like they're using split personalities at times, and it's just the whole thing seems like Illuminati mind control after you read or hear some of Springmeyer's information.
Yeah.
I know Frater really digs that show. I'd kind of like to hear his take on that.
I just can't get off. Yeah.
What are you guys whispering about?
Oh,
sorry, we've just been joined by my mum.
Oh.
She can't sleep, so she's
going to be a special guest.
She found us all huddling around the microphone and wondering what's happening.
We'll have to give her some of that M&S port blue green. I've got some left over from Christmas.
Well, hey, we've got a caller on the line. It's 785-917-1983. Hello.
This is Angela. Ann, how are you?
Angela, well, how are you doing?
Good, I'm very well. How are you?
Very well indeed. I absolutely love your pictures you just put up of your, where we get some...
My vacation?
Is that a vacation? Right.
Yes, I was on vacation.
Right. That's quite a grand haul you're in.
You know, I did very well. I did. I had a very good day. My friends I was with did not do very well, but I did. They were calling me the Crystal Fairy.
Right, yeah. Oh, God. Where did you get those crystals from, by the way?
I went to Hot Springs, Arkansas, to a mine just north of there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of that, actually, yeah.
Yeah. I had a great 4 days, soaking in hot springs, hot tubs, and digging crystals. It was very fun.
Cool.
I was hoping to see Frater and Materex and maybe make some organite when I came to visit, but I hear they're not coming to visit, so I'll have to wait till next time.
No. Yeah, we talked to them last week about a few things going down with them, sort of thing. It's not very nice, but anyway.
Yeah.
What, is that your land you were digging in then?
No,
No,
not
right.
my land.
Okay, right. Didn't you have
We
a
have
sort
no
of...
crystals here.
Right.
I was at an actual crystal mine where they
I
dump
see. You
big
were digging
piles and then you
crystals,
get a dig.
right.
Yeah, I was at an actual crystal mine.
Right.
You pay like $20.
Sorry?
You get to pay $20 and then you get to keep whatever you find all day.
Oh, okay, right. Brilliant.
That was nice.
Yeah. Excellent, yeah, because I thought you've been doing a bit of work on the gardening site recently, haven't you?
I have been doing a lot of gardening already. My weather has been very warm. We only had one light snow all winter. And so I've decided that it's being hotter than usual. So I'm just going to start early because I'd rather replant than lose everything to heat early.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I was digging the plot this morning. And but I wasn't quite sure if I was pulling up the right things, but apparently I did, because I'll have to pull everything up to get it ready. Yeah.
So what are you guys discussing now? I was on a time lapse, so when I was listening on the radio. What are we talking about today?
Well, we've been kind of just shooting the breeze about a lot of things, really, and nothing at all. Just rambling on, yeah. We were supposed to have a guest on tonight, who's like a synchromystic guy, and he unfortunately Jake Kotze. Did you hear of him?
One of the authors of the Think book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been around for like years, 5 or 6 years, sort of talking about that stuff, and just amazing. Quite bizarre.
So have you guys talked about the coronal mass injections from the sun?
We were just about to get to that because we've got a hopefully a stand-in guest who's going to come on, and we were just about to talk about that actually. But if you want to start off, go ahead, Ange.
Well, I've been keeping track of them. And it looks like they haven't caused a lot of damage, but they've definitely been blasting us.
Yeah.
And with the solar maximum happening, I think that maybe gardening early might be our best ticket because it might be a very warm summer.
Right. I mean, I'm looking at the Red Ice page now, and it's got M-class flares with a big warning sign saying storm.
Right.
Yeah, so the geomagnetic field is going to be pretty...
Battered?
battered, yeah. But because I actually heard that it was going to hit in Canada on Monday, like the Monday that's just been, and sort of like jump across the states and sort of get over here by now, sort of thing. But I haven't really noticed anything.
No.
And how's it been in Kansas?
Very warm.
Right.
We've had no winter. The bugs, the bees are out. My plants say it's spring. My trees are starting to bloom.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
It's still winter.
Yeah. So what's it normally like in Kansas then?
It should be snowy.
Right.
Cold. It hasn't been. Only one small snow. That's all.
Uh-huh.
It's very unusual.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been pretty mild here all winter, I must admit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to some other friends of Freeman in New Zealand and Australia, and they say just the opposite. It's been unseasonably cold. They're having their summer or their harvest season right now, and they say it's been a very bad year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what they were telling me.
Mm. Well, remember when Judy Wood was on, she was talking about how in the Midwest, when they changed the television to the, what's it called, the digital signal.
Digital.
Yeah, that they started getting not just tornadoes, but superstorms happening and super tornadoes.
Yeah, we just had one a week ago.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
Superstorm. There was like 74 tornadoes, 30-some people died. It was terrible.
Wow.
They said it was the biggest storm system ever recorded since we started recording them here.
I bet no one was thinking the fact that these towers can cause superstorms.
Yeah. Well, that basically is the harp system, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not. You can say harp and like point to a harp, but actually harp is now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because everywhere.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. That's what they are. The sort of the same system. They're all in.
They're walking the arse.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're doing it from city to city.
600 miles south of us, where it's traditionally very much warmer than us, so they've been getting snow, and it's been much colder there.
Yeah, do you know the guy who's on after Freeman on Oracle, Dennis Fletcher, is it?
Yes?
Yeah. Well, he's from Oman, or he does his show from Oman, and it was snowing there last week.
Wow.
Which, Oman's the desert, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
Well, Rosalind Peterson as well, on her site, she talks about how they put in the weather experimentation that they were doing, they managed to put more snow in the Wyoming mountains than had ever been put there before. But as a result of this, later on in the year, there was drought in the surrounding counties. So, and Freeman talks about how he got snowed in as well in July, wasn't it? Up in the mountains in the national forest.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, my husband was with him at that time when they got snowed in the mountains.
Yeah. So it's quite easy for them to actually just dump a load of snow in certain areas, it seems.
Wow.
Create super tornadoes, dump snow, and then throw their arms in the air and say, oh my God, the weather's gone crazy.
Yeah, climate change.
Climate change, yeah.
And the mountains, the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, they've been experiencing tornadoes in the mountains.
Yeah.
High up is like 7,000 feet, which has never happened before.
Gosh, yeah.
I don't know if you guys get tornadoes there, but
they're not unheard of.
They're not unheard of, but they're very
unusual.
they're very small as well. They're sort of
They tend to,
eddy size they're called, I think.
They'll maybe knock a couple of walls down or take someone's chimney off their house.
Take some tiles off the roof or something like that. But
when I was on my vacation last week, I drove through Joplin, Missouri, which was hit last year, and they were hit by an F5, which they call the finger of God.
Yeah.
And you could still clearly see where the tornado went. I mean, they'd cleared up a lot of the rubble, but it was still like a mile-wide destruction zone. It was just wiped out things.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Terrible.
Yeah, but it's terrible if they're man-made, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If they're being whipped up by something.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
Converge. What is it? The crossing. Beam.
I don't know what causes a tornado. It's
It's the.
It's caused by a warm front and a cold front hitting in the wind.
Yeah. Yeah. But also with the electromagnetic activity that's going on the ground from the towers, you know, the phone towers and towers at local airports and things like this that are causing the cross, like John Hutchison talks about the different wavelengths that cross. What do they call that? I've forgotten.
Well, 0 point, is it?
Well, no, it's just like the converging wavelengths within a static field, and they can kind of enhance the activity that's going on in there. So you get a storm, but these converging wavelengths of activity kind of speed up the storm and turn it into a superstorm. They kind of, you know, whip it up like a hoop and a stick idea.
Is that how it works,
Right.
Andrew?
What? I'm sorry?
Oh no, we've got somebody else on the line who supposedly would know. He's quite an expert on stuff like that, but he's here, but he's not.
I can hear you. I was just waiting to see if I didn't know what you know, if you'd introduced or whether you're waiting for a suitable non-commercial break.
No. Well, Andrew and Ange, this is hello to each other. Andrew
Hi.
and
Hi, Ange.
Andrew.
Hello.
Hi.
Andrew's in Kansas, which we're just talking about tornadoes, and
Oh, yeah.
can you tell us how a tornado starts?
Well, that's a good question. I think I don't know what the official explanation is. I think it's just meant to be a, you know, sort of swirling vortex of air, which somehow gets, you know, turned into a high-speed system. What I have seen is there was an experiment in one of the universities, and this is probably on YouTube. I saw this 2 or 3 years ago, where the guy actually, it's like a physics lab or a climate lab or something, and I think I don't know which university it's in, but he's got a hole in the floor and possibly a hole in the roof as well, and he actually creates a vortex which looks like a tornado just by switching on some equipment. You know, and it's really noisy. You know, you can't hear, if you listen to the thing, you can't hear hardly anybody speaking because you see this horrible noise. And I don't know whether it's from the motors or the swirling air, but they do. You know, they've created this as a way of studying the airflow. But I don't think they fully know how tornadoes form. I mean, what Dr. Judy Wood was talking about, I think last time she was with you, and I've heard her speaking about it a couple of times since, is the idea that what's happening with the radio
We were just talking about that, yeah, the digital sort of crossover.
Right. I mean, what that's essentially the idea is that that's creating a static field where you've got this. I mean, it's not precisely a static field as such, because the radio signals that are are there are pulsed. You know, the mobile phone masts are not broadcasting the same signal absolutely all the time, because you've got the signal being modulated with the actual, the voice data and the other data that's going across it. So it's not like a constant signal. I'm sure there's like a constant sort of background, as it were, but on top of that, there's going to be another layer of signalling over that. So I don't think it's quite straightforward as you might think, but nevertheless it is. I think there's a number of factors at work.
So do you think this static field effect would be increased by the solar flare activity we're experiencing?
Well, that's exactly the sort of thing where I don't think there's really a lot of information that's available, but the change in solar activity, that has a direct effect on the Earth's magnetic field.
Yeah.
And then also there must be the thing that's not really spoken about much is this idea that if you look at the electric universe model which has been put forward by Dave Talbot
Yeah.
and Wallace Thornhill, and there's other people like Jim McCanney that have talked about bits and pieces of that. Although Jim McCanney doesn't call it the electric universe, but what that essentially brings into the picture is that the solar system itself is electrically charged, and that, if you look at all the astronomy books, that's just not even talked about. And it's like this circuit within the solar system, and all the planets are essentially, you know, electrical components within the solar system, and when they move around, you know, all the field balance between all the planets changes, and with that in mind, you know, you can begin to see that the movements of the planets and the sun, and the other, what's called the local interstellar medium, the LISM, that can all affect the electrical field and the magnetic field around the Earth to a greater or lesser extent. And again, you know, one of the things I've put on my website, I've sort of stolen quite a few things and put them together into a thing called Reinvestigating Climate Change. And if people want some hard information on the climate change issue, I suggest that they go and download that document, and they can have a read through it. Because
just give out the address, Andrew, quickly.
It was just on the homepage. You go check theevidence.com, and you'll see, if you go down just a little way down the page, you shouldn't even have to scroll down at all. It's near the top. It's called Reinvestigating Climate Change. You click on that, and there's like, you know, that brings up another web page, and then within that web page there's a PDF file, and you can download that if you want. You know, and I've been printing this out and giving copies out from time to time. And what I've really tried to do there is collect several groups of information. One is, for example, you know, a little bit on the electric universe thing. I've collected together a load of pictures of Saturn, Mars, Jupiter. Like Jupiter, for example, had 3 red spots a few years ago, and then the main red spot, which has been present for at least 300 years, that sort of almost disappeared a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago. It faded out, changed colour, and then it came back again. And then they've had this huge storm on Saturn, which happened, I think, when was it? I think the end of 2010, I think that was. It was enormous. It was really big, bigger than anyone they'd had before. We've had the clouds on Uranus. They've increased in the last, between about 1998 and 2002. There's pictures of that, which I, you know, nicked off various websites. So, and then, you know, I've put in the Climate Gate stuff at the back, which is all the climate research at East Anglia University, which is one of the sort of centres of excellence for climate research in the UK.
If you've got enough money, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely. And that you can just see their agenda with those emails that have been leaked. And I recently was listening to, what's his name, Corbett, the Corbett report. I can't remember his name. Now he's poo-pooed Dr. Judy Wood's research, so I don't really hold him in high regard. Oh yeah. But I saw some email exchanges or forum exchanges with him somewhere, and he was saying, oh, you know, that's, you know, not very likely or something like that. But what he did expose was Climate Gate 2, which was this famous hockey stick graph, which you know, you hear about with that bloody Al Gore rubbishy film, and that hockey stick, apparently that's obviously generated with a computer program, apparently of some kind, and somebody got hold of the program and they just put in, you know, random data that they just made up, and it still came out with a hockey stick shape. So, you know, and that was like the Climate Gate 2.0. That whole model is just complete rubbish. Yeah. You know, and yet they're now setting public policy with it, and that's why I made this document, because they had this meeting at the Royal Society. We've had, in fact, several meetings. I went to the one at the end of 2010, and they had a whole 2 days of talks all about global warming, and it was all carbon dioxide. Nothing else was in the frame. Nothing. It was all carbon dioxide. And David Keith was there, and there was myself and two other ladies there. I'm not a lady, but I don't know why I'm saying that. There was two ladies there, coincidentally, both French-speaking. One had come over from France for the event. The other, I think, lived in Paris, but she wasn't originally French. And we'd communicated on Facebook and stuff beforehand, an email. And we were the only three people, probably out of about 150, 200 people, who had any question CO2 was not a factor. Everyone else was just up for it. Oh, the climate's changing, we need to put stuff in the atmosphere to fix it and all this rubbish. They had no idea at all of the other stuff that's going on, some of which I'm sure you've just been discussing.
What was their answer? What questions did you put to them?
Well, I basically sat there most of the day, sort of squirming in my seat, listening to this rubbish. But I waited to the end because there was like a general sort of plenary session at the end, and I didn't want to take up too much time because there were other people with questions, so I didn't want to. I felt like just going up to the front and grabbing hold of the microphone and saying, you just have no idea what you're talking about. But I didn't do that. What I did was I read out a short statement, and I read out Eisenhower's speech from 1961, or sorry, part of it, which was the bit about where he says that the academic establishment has been taken over, and there's no independent thought. He didn't say that, but that's essentially
no critical thinking.
Yeah. And it's run by the government, and you don't have original research. You have a government contract now. And of course we were having this talk in the Glaxo Welcome Lecture Theatre.
Glaxo Welcome.
Yep.
That says it all, really, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a big sign up. And I'm thinking, well, this is like Eisenhower said this like 61. That's 50 years ago, and I'm thinking we're 50 years on from that, half a century, and we can see the results. The corporate agendas control the direction which science takes.
Well, the Royal Society was founded by Francis Bacon and based on Rosicrucian ideas and stuff, philosophy. So obviously they do have an idea of what's going on, but this is just propaganda they're putting out.
Right. But when I stood up at the end, I was just saying, I read out Eisenhower's speech, and I sort of says, look, if anybody wants to come and speak to me about the information that I've got to give, then and I went out. I didn't try and give stuff out in the thing. I went out and stood out on the street and waited for people to come out because it was at the end of the day, and a few people took a leaflet and stuff like that. And I ended up exchanging a few email addresses, but there was one guy I started talking to, and he was a geography teacher, as it turned out. And I exchanged a few emails with him, but he just couldn't hack it. He could not entertain this idea of a hurricane being steered. It was just like it was just like it didn't even exist. That data didn't even exist. It's like he just couldn't even take it in. Another guy thought I was completely crazy, even though I had all the pictures in front of me to show him what I was trying to show him. He just thought I was a nutcase.
Had they heard of Tesla or Wilhelm Reich?
Well, I didn't really get a chance to speak about that with anybody. That didn't really come up. I was trying to just get them to look at some of the other data that showed that the CO2 thing was just one microscopic part of the whole picture.
So one day I was talking to my daughter about what kind of future jobs she might want to get to. So we Googled jobs of 2030, and on the top 10 jobs of 2030, this futuristic site said that weather modification police would be one of the top jobs. Thought it was interesting. I was like, whoa.
A weather modification police?
Yes. To control all the countries from controlling the weather and make sure that they weren't harming anyone.
Well, we need them now. That's not in the future.
now.
Well, that's it. You know, that,
out there to protect their policies and make sure everyone's got a license so they can control it.
So they can control it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so they can make you use these light bulbs with mercury in, so that that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah.
They're just going to be saying, right, well, you know, you're burning too much carbon by using the other ones. You have to use these.
It talks about making a worse problem, though, for something that's not really a problem, because you've got the mercury to get rid of. And did you tell us about the ones if you break one of these lights, you've got to evacuate the room for 3
we
hours?
broke when I looked up on the net and it said evacuate the room for 15 minutes, and I'd already handled the bloody thing out. I'm thinking, oh god.
You know, they breathe it off.
It's pretty poisonous stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, somebody came up with this phrase a few years ago. You know, we're not sort of victims of a war on terror. We're victims of a war on terror, as in terror spelt T-E-R-R-A.
Yeah, terra firma.
Or Gaia.
Or you know, Gaia, Sophia, whatever you want to call it.
And fighting a silent war with silent weapons as well, like
silent weapons for quiet wars. All that stuff.
Reward counts and all this sort of nonsense.
Yeah.
The cards.
And you don't see it until you know about the sort of the other story, you know, behind the story, as it were, you know, and you're just not given an opportunity to find that anywhere unless you go and look for it yourself, you know.
It's interesting to sort of see how people become so locked in their belief for things as well, though, when you see at schools now that children are being taught in a certain way about climate change, that
yes,
this is how this happens, and this is how this happens, and human beings are doing this damage and this damage. And so for them to be suddenly, you know, at the age of 20, or even, you know, youngsters just out of school, 18, 19, 20, to suddenly be confronted by someone saying, well, you know, that's rubbish. And especially at that age, you're really kind of trying to reinforce your own identity and your own values in life. And so, but without realising that they've only been put there by what somebody has told you. They're not necessarily something that you've actually thought yourself, or perhaps thought through yourself, especially through school, where you just have to repeat things, you know, repeat what the teacher says, and so that there isn't actually a process of free thought going on there. And then when you do actually challenge somebody, it's very difficult for them to let go of the indoctrination and to actually start and to even bother to look into something to see if actually what they've been taught all their lives might not necessarily be true.
Right.
And children these days have it's happening more and more at school, but really it's been for the past 10, 15 years or so now that it's getting a lot heavier at school for kids. You know, they ask kids at school now, hands up who thinks that climate change is not man-made. And of course nobody puts their hands up, and so the teacher goes, good, right, because there is incontrovertible evidence that this is the case. Blah, 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 blah.
You're telling me they know about half of them?
Well, no, they
But it's, you know, my daughter's at school. She's 14 now, and you know, they've had to do 2 school projects in the last couple of years that I've not got to know about. One was on climate change, of course, and the other one was on the Holocaust, which they just done recently. So you know, I had to sort of give her a bit of extra information that I told her not to put into a school project. You know.
Yeah.
But my daughter's she is getting, you know, thankfully she's not getting too programmed up at school.
But you would be considered a dangerous parent, Andrew, for giving your daughter that kind of information.
Oh yeah, I would if it had got to the school, but that's why I told her not to put it at the school, because she'd just end up in trouble. You know, I mean, not necessarily trouble, but she'd just end up having heated discussions with the teacher, and you know, I don't know. I've got sort of mixed feelings about that in terms of whether you should create conflict at school. I mean, I think obviously if I was there and I was in the classroom, it'd be different. But with it being my daughter, You know, I don't think it's fair to put her through that unless she really feels strongly enough that she wants to go through with it.
It comes from themselves, doesn't it? It has to come from them. It can't be. You can't just tell them.
For a start, they'd start treating it as subversive. They'd start looking out for people that actually say things like, you know, that contradict the authoritative line.
I mean, the attitude button under the desk.
She like these people, you know.
She did tell me something interesting though, because they ended up talking about Apollo in one of the lessons, the moon landings, and the teacher did actually ask, how many people don't believe it or something. I can't remember the exact question, but my daughter said that quite a few people put their hands up and they didn't believe it.
What, didn't believe that they landed on the moon?
Didn't believe it. Yeah. So that was quite interesting.
That's very interesting.
It wasn't like I think it was about it wasn't all the class, but I think you said it was about a quarter or a third of the class or something like that.
Enough to show up.
I don't think very many Americans at all believe that we landed on the moon. Most Americans don't believe that.
Well, but what do the teaching class around the teach you that they did, do they?
I think they definitely do teach in America that there's a theory that it never happened and that we were in the middle of an arms race.
Really? What, in the classroom? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic.
Well, but do you think most Americans think that it just flat out didn't happen, or that the thing they sold to us was cover for something else?
Yes, that's probably what we think. I would say.
I think
because, we have the whole Area 51 and all that stuff, and, they've released the papers on what that was now. Those have come out.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things about controversial aircrafts and what we were trying to do at that time.
You know stuff about Area 51, don't you, Andrew? What are your views on that and papers that have recently come out?
Well, I mean, I've not seen the very recent stuff. I mean, I tend to think that a lot of the Area 51 stuff. Well, there's one specific case I'll mention in a minute, but which is a few years old now. But the phrase that comes to mind is, those that know don't talk, and those that talk don't know.
Yeah.
I think that applies to a lot of stuff. But one case that I think is from my own gut feeling about in the research that I've done, the exception to that seems to be Edgar Fouché. Now Edgar Fouché, he worked on cryptographic equipment. I think in the 1970s, and he was a cryptographic, that's sending secret messages. He was an expert in that, and he was doing some consultancy work, and he was flown into Area 51, and he didn't know exactly where he landed. And he told this story when he came out, after he came out a few years later, that he worked on this equipment, and then whilst he was repairing this equipment or trying to work out what was wrong with it, he saw some other advanced electronics in a rack, and I think he got some. This was in the 70s, and they already had a 1 gigahertz processor in this system that he was using in the 1970s, and he claims to have seen this thing which was labelled. Let's see if I can remember the abbreviation. DOCL or something, and that stood for Direct Orbital Code Link, and this was a link up to a space vehicle of some kind, which he gave this an acronym. It was called the SONCIV, and he came out with some very, very specific information, and then he came out with this information about the TR3B, which has become quite well known about now, and I think mainly through Fouché's disclosures. And the TR3B is this triangular craft said to be 600 feet across.
Yeah.
And it's powered by.
It's got the plasma balls underneath.
Yeah, that's right. It's got magnetic field disruptor built into it, and it operates on the principle of a rotating mercury-based plasma, which is rotated at I think it's pressurized to 250,000 atmospheres and cooled to 150 Kelvin, which is about minus 120 degrees centigrade.
Yeah.
And he came up with some specific figures. It wasn't just my mate saw it and he told me it was
Yeah.
specific. And you know, you can Google all that. It's still on the internet. So he came out with this information. I think it was about 2002 or something. And then, of course, you know, as happens with the UFO field, everyone in the UFO field just about attacked him, said he was a liar. And that's the people in the UFO field, you know. Never mind
I thought they might be a bit interested in that.
You would really, you know. I mean, it's a bit like the 9/11 Truth, you know, movement attacking the only scientific research into the destruction of the building and trying to cover it up.
Yeah.
I think he was onto something.
Yeah.
And then he kind of went underground, I think, in about 2003. And not much was heard from him after that. Now, this brings me on to, I'm going off the Area 51 topic a bit, but nevertheless, I think there is a link to that because, and there's another article I ended up posting not too long ago about this Edgar Fouché thing. I mean, looking at the history, I'd listened to people like David Hatcher Childress and Nick Cook, talking about the Nazi bell, which, believe it or not, operated on a principle of rotating device with mercury.
With mercury,
technology.
Yeah.
If you look at the manual, which is called the Vimanaka Shastra, which has been written about by David Hatcher Childress and a few others, in that Vimanaka Shastra, it tells you how the Vimanas work. And guess what? They use mercury.
They're calling them Vimanas, are they?
Yeah,
yeah.
That's what's in the Vedic script.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's interesting. They're calling them that.
So, there's something going on with that then. This Mercury's got something, and we've just been talking about Mercury with the light bulbs for whatever reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think there's something in that there. There's something there which is known about. There's some factor there which is known about, which again added credibility to Fouché's story to me. I mean, he never talked about bananas or anything like that. You know, I never heard him talk about the Nazi bell. But anyway, so he went underground, and then this was about probably about a couple of years ago now. I came across this YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel name was E Fearful, which is at the very beginning. E Fearful, as in be fearful, but with a B taken off the front.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's a bit weird. And the guy who was running this channel claimed to be Edgar Fouché, and I exchanged a couple of YouTube messages with him, saying, have you heard about how this advanced technology? You're obviously interested in this advanced secret technology. Have you heard about how the World Trade Center was destroyed? You know, and went into the usual sort of skip with that, and then it turns out that he wasn't really very interested in that for some reason, you know. But then the thing that came out of that conversation was he was good friends with Alien Scientist. Now, I don't know if people have come across Alien Scientist.
Yeah.
And he's got loads of YouTube videos. He's apparently some techie guy. I think he may be a physics graduate. He knows quite a bit of stuff. And he's done some really cool videos, very packed with information. He's got a good narration style, very fluent. And he's got a very big YouTube following, into the sort of tens of thousands of subscribers. And but then prior to this, I became suspicious because prior to this conversation that I'd had with this E Fearful, who was claiming to be Edgar Fouché, and I didn't believe him, frankly. He says, Alien Scientist made this video, and he was trashing Judy Wood again, which of course is never a good sign. And so I basically, I got the feeling that it was Alien Scientist that was running E Fearful's channel. I didn't have any proof of that, but that was the feeling I got. And I wrote an article about this because Alien Scientist then made a video directly attacking Judy Wood's research. He used an image of her face. He used an image of my book. And so we filed a copyright violation against his channel, or actually somebody else did it on our behalf. I've written all this up in an article, but the peculiar thing was that on Alien Scientist's channel, around this time, a video of Edgar Fouché was posted in 7 parts from 1998. It was a 1998 UFO Congress presentation. which was all about this TR3B stuff. I think it's still on his channel, actually. And I'm thinking, why is Alien Scientist posting this all of a sudden, and how come it's just now? You know, why wasn't it a few years ago? Why has this only just come on now? And then the other thing that he did was he posted an interview with a chap called Eugene Podkletnov. Eugene Podkletnov. He's another figure that comes up in anti-gravity research. And there was an article published on the BBC website, I think, I can't remember, I think it was published a couple of times, a couple of years apart. But this Eugene Podkletnov guy had apparently been approached by Boeing because he'd been doing experiments with what Podkletnov called a force beam. And he generated a levitation effect with a rotating superconducting disc. And Boeing had got onto him. And he'd done a couple of podcasts. Podkletnov did a podcast on Tim Ventura's site, American Anti-Gravity, and that site's a bit weird because it was set up, it was quite a resource, then it disappeared for a couple of years, then it came back, and Tim Ventura had interviewed John Hutchison, and that interview had been there, and then that interview disappeared, and it came back, the John Hutchison interview disappeared. But the Podkletnov, he's never been heard of for about 4 years. Again, he's disappeared off the scene. But somehow Alien Scientist in 2010 posted this 6-year-old interview with Podkletnov. Similarly, you know, he got this old Fouché video posted. And then he's attacking the Judy Wood research, which, you know, sort of branches into the anti-gravity aspect. And I got the feeling that Alien Scientist was kind of like he was managing the good anti-gravity info and making sure, you know, that it didn't really go anywhere in particular, and that he was keeping tabs on who was going to be looking at this information and making something of it. So I've written an article about this. I've called it Alien Scientist and His Alien Science, and you can see all the links in there and everything. It's all, you know, the reason why I've said these things just now is all in that article, basically. And you can see these people are up to something. You know, they come onto the internet, they put up some sort of attractive, interesting videos, they suck people in, and then they take them, you know, the wrong way with the most important things, you know, and it happens over and over and over again. And it's the same with chemtrails, frankly, you know.
It's interesting what you were saying about the Royal Society. I remember you telling me a story about artist Stanton Freeman or whatever concerning the crystal skulls. Can you relate that? Because he had the opportunity to see one of these things and handle one of these things. And he didn't want to know.
But it was actually, yeah, it wasn't the crystal skull, but it was the Star Child.
Oh, Star Child. That's it. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But yeah. That what this story was related to me by Lloyd Pye a couple of years ago. I don't think he'll mind me telling it. Because it's not, again, it doesn't really prove anything. It's just a peculiar story, a bit like this one I've told about this alien scientist fellow. It doesn't precisely prove anything, but it looks mighty suspicious. But what happened was Lloyd Pye, he keeps this, looks after this thing called the Star Child skull. Came across it in 1999. You can look at starchildproject.com to find all the information about it. Very interesting artifact indeed. It looks superficially human. He's taken it to experts, cranial experts, and they all say it's a cradle-boarded hydrocephalic skull. In other words, it's from a child that's had hydrocephaly, and it's from a tribe, you know, of people who work in the fields. So the mother has put the baby on a cradle board, you know, when it's been so many months old or weeks old, and strapped its head, and that flattens the back of the head, so you get this cradle boarding effect. All the experts said it was that, didn't even look at it, but the eyes are all different. The eye socket depth is too shallow. It has no sinuses. The bone density is very high. It's much lighter than human skull. It's got much greater cranial capacity. It has no inion. On and on and on these anomalies go.
Didn't they do DNA testing on it and found that they could guarantee that they could only guarantee that it had one human parent?
Right. Well, this was the 2003 findings. Now, the DNA story is quite complicated now because there's been further results in the last. In fact, very recently we got another result from Lloyd this last week, actually. But basically, to summarise that story, it was tested, I think, in 1999 by a police forensic lab who claimed to be able to test ancient DNA, in other words, older than 50 years, because the Star Child skull was carbon dated twice, came out at 900 years old, plus or minus 40 years, and that test has been done twice. The original DNA test with the police forensics lab was pretty much a botched job because they couldn't really do ancient DNA. It was too old. They claimed that they could, but actually they couldn't, and they just said it was human. So when that result was published, Lloyd Pye took a real hammering because they were saying it was human. The DNA test results proved it, and he almost gave up at that point. But no, he didn't give up. He took it for a further DNA test when the techniques were more advanced. Trace Genetics did a test in 2003, and there are two types of DNA you can test. There's what's called the nuclear DNA, which is in every cell in the body, and it's got so many billion base pairs, I think 3 billion base pairs. And then there's what's called the mitochondrial DNA. Now the mitochondria are these little batteries which are inside. They're in the cell, and they generate energy for the cell. But in the mitochondrial DNA, I think there are 16,000, if I remember the figure correctly, base pairs, much smaller number. And the mitochondrial DNA that only has DNA from the mother's line, the maternal line, and the maternal DNA, and that's well recorded in genetics as a science. And so what they did was the Trace Genetics test. They tested both they tried to recover the nuclear DNA from a bone sample, which failed. They couldn't get any nuclear DNA at all. But the mitochondrial DNA was recovered, and from that test, it was presumed that the mitochondrial DNA showed that it was a human mother. The Star Child had a human mother. And so then they went into the idea that his mother was human, but because the nuclear DNA wasn't recoverable, the human primers which they used, weren't latching on to the appropriate DNA chains, and so they concluded that its father was non-human. They didn't say alien; they said non-human. Now, things have moved on since then because what happened was they've got more advanced DNA testing now. It's called a technique called shotgunning, and this guy's been doing it quietly in his on the back burner. Somewhere in the States, I think the lab is, but we don't know who the guy's doing it and where the lab is. But he's been slowly recovering more of the nuclear DNA. And they've now also retested the mitochondrial DNA. And what they found is that the mitochondrial DNA has human fragments in it, right? But there's only 16,000 base pairs. But the nuclear DNA, it's got a few human-looking bits, but there's certain lengths which should, match. And they've recovered these sequences. They've compared them with what's called the National Institute of Health database, the NIH database, and they don't match any species on Earth. And that's very significant, because if you take any sample of any of our DNA, and you just a very small sample of it, and you put it into this NIH database, the sequence, it would match with, say, a caterpillar, because we share some of our DNA with caterpillars, for example, only a small amount. But the Star Child DNA didn't match anything. I think there's 100 different animals with several different species. I think they've tried to get a sample of the whole of the DNA of all the animal kingdom, and a sample of 100 species are in this database. and the Star Child's DNA didn't match anything at all, which is unheard of. They've never had that before.
Wow.
So the latest appears to be, although they used to think it was a human mother, they do think it's now a complete alien, because the mitochondrial DNA has only got, because you've got this smaller sample to work with, there's more likely to be some similar sequences to humans. So what they picked up in the original test was some human-looking sequences, but now they've got the more comprehensive, nuclear DNA test coming along now. It's looking like it's not human at all. So they're now building that up into a full. They want to recover the whole genome, which is 3 billion base pairs, but that's like years of work, literally. And they've been doing that with the Neanderthal man. They'd started that, I thought, about 3 years ago, and they've recovered the whole genome, I think, or nearly all of it, for the Neanderthal man now. And so that they're using that as like a yardstick, apparently for how this is going, which is quite interesting. But going back to the Stanton Friedman story, that's quite a long thing to get you up to speed on the Star Child.
No, really interesting stuff, man.
Yeah.
And that's all on his website, starchildproject.com. So you can go and there's some videos and that, which show you the skull, and he handles it, and he points out all the deformities and that. They're not deformities; they're actually natural to the Star Child. Anyway, so Lloyd's with this weird skull, very unusual skull. He takes it to the Roswell Anniversary Conference, which was 2007, 60th anniversary of Roswell, and he's a couple of tables down from Stanton Friedman, and he goes up to Stanton Friedman. They probably met before at some of these UFO events. Lloyd Pye's not really a UFO guy; he doesn't really go into it that much. He's more interested in the hominoids, the Bigfoot scenario of things. And he says, would you like to come and see the Star Child skull? We're looking, we're thinking it's probably an alien, a real alien. And he got the real skull there. He normally takes the mock-up with him, the stereolithographic copy. But this time for the anniversary, he'd taken the real skull. I think people were handling, they were handling the mock-up, but he'd taken the real one to show them. And Stanton Friedman says, I'll come and have a look tomorrow, So the next day, Lloyd says to him again, would you'd like to come and look? I'll come and have a look later this afternoon. Never came and picked it up. Stanton Friedman never came and picked up the Star skull. Not interested. Stephen Greer, exactly the same. Stephen Greer is a physician. Stephen Greer met Lloyd Pye at a conference. Lloyd said to me, Stephen Greer looked at it, it's very interesting, walked off.
For spokesman of ufology, that's
I know,
really.
right. You'd think that he'd be.
God, you'd be wetting your pants if you were off a sort of that, wouldn't you?
Something that could be partly alien. That's just right up their street. Why do they just walk by?
And I mean, as far as I can tell, Lloyd Pye's got the real deal. He has got the real deal.
Yeah, he's an unassuming guy, isn't he? He's not got any edge to him. He's not got any.
No.
Nothing to prove or anything there. Just. Yeah.
And
Judy in some ways, he's just got something and he's saying, well, this is what I found out. This is what I'm telling.
And I've said to him,
people to kind of be interested and flock towards it and say, oh, wow, that's interesting. But instead, they kind of take an angle on it.
They do. I think there's various reasons for that. I think some of them are probably, sort of sinister in some ways. Stanton Friedman has connections to the military, for example. So does Stephen Greer. He has connections to NASA anyway. I'm pretty sure those guys do have an agenda. Stanton Friedman is mainly a lights in the sky guy and a documents guy. He doesn't really go talk. He talks about the Betty and Barney Hill case, but he doesn't really talk about the Milab's abductions and stuff like that. And I always find that odd, where you get people like him just focusing on one or two bits of the field. So I'm interested in all of it. Well, I want to find out about all of it and see how it all.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm always a bit puzzled by these guys like him who only seem to be interested in just little bits and pieces of it.
He talks about Area 51 and the alien, the autopsy and stuff and all that, doesn't he? So he is interested in other things than just lights in the sky. So you'd think he'd be interested in that,
We would, but he tends to try and debunk a lot of stuff. For example, he seemed quite keen to debunk Colonel Corso's story, and he claims that Colonel Corso was never a member of the National Security Council, which was the thing that was set up by President Truman in '47, supposedly to, after the war. But some other people said it was like a cover for the UFO cover-up, for the Roswell crash and so on, and the one at Socorro and Aztec. So I think there were 3 in 1947 that people, rather than just one. I think there were at least 3 crashes in 47.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and there's an agenda here. It's like all these people are just wanting to keep other people running in rings. And the thing is that when you find something and it's game over, I think a lot of people think, oh, well, if that's game over, what am I going to do now?
Exactly.
All these people who spent all their life trying to prove the reality of alien life, when they've got something which so obviously proves it, they don't want that, because if they've proved it, that's what are they going to do next? They don't know what to do next. And I think there's some of that. It's a bit like going back to cancer research. I know I'm jumping around, but cancer researchers, they're paid to look for a cure, but they're not paid to find one.
Yeah.
And those are 2 different things.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Good analogy.
Very good analogy. Yeah, excellent.
We were just talking earlier about Joseph Farrell. I mean, he's got so many really interesting books on the whole, the story of the bell, and like you were saying, the rotating Mercury and all that kind of thing. I don't know how much you want to sort of go into that kind of thing, but about his work, because I know you've got certain ideas, or not ideas, facts about the way Joseph Farrell conducts his business. But I just wondered if you wanted to sort of maybe make comment about his book.
Well, I did have some strange communication with Joseph Farrell. I sent him a little bit of money, just a small donation for his website, because I heard him on a... if you want to listen to Joe, I don't, you guys are obviously familiar with him, but other people who might be listening, there's a website called The Byte Show, as in B-Y-T-E, a computer byte, thebyteshow.com. And there's probably about 20 hours of the Farrell stuff on there, and there's somebody called George Ann Hughes. That's a lady. I know it's George Ann is a funny name, but it's actually a lady. And I listened to most of those, and you could download them free, very interesting. And they were both sort of saying, oh, I'm hard up, send me some money. So I sent them a little bit of money. But I won't go into all the details at this point, but there's a couple of things I'll mention. That there has been direct contact between Joseph Farrell and Dr. Judy Wood. I will say that, and you can hear him talk. He is one of the few people who has mentioned her a couple of times on his broadcasts, but he does it more with a Richard Hoagland slant to it, if I can put it like that.
Him and Hoagland are kind of...
Kind of buddies, they exchange emails.
Right. And so again, there's another article I wrote called Is Richard Hoagland on a Dark Mission?, which is on my website, and you can go and read that. And really, the thing that I point out is that Joseph Farrell has published a lot of books, as you've mentioned. I think the first 2 or 3, maybe even 4 or more, they were published through David Hatch Childress's company, which is Adventures Unlimited Press. And then he moved over to Feral House, as in F-E-R-A-L. I don't know if that's the same as a feral, wild animal feral, but anyway, which is peculiar. And in the article, you will note that Feral House was going to publish Dr. Judy Wood's book, but they didn't, and they took a couple of years to not publish it. And there's quite a long story behind that, but we've put a sketch of that into the article, Richard Hoagland's Dark Mission. But the peculiar thing is that Adam Parfrey, who's the head of that company, now he published another book in 2001 in America. The company was Feral House, and that book was called The Gates of Janus. And The Gates of Janus is about serial killers and their psychology, and it's written by somebody called Ian Brady, the murderer.
Where did he write that? In prison?
I don't know. But I found an article, because what happened was I found that out, not that it's secret or anything like that, but I found it out by accident because what happened was, and this is in the article, as you know, we've got Dr. Judy Wood's Where Did the Towers Go book published now, which was done in the Far East. It was a sort of, essentially it was self-published. And Feral House had listed it as being published by them, and they'd listed it as being published in the UK. And I had people writing to me saying, Andrew, I've heard that Dr. Judy Wood's book has been published, but when I go onto this website, it says it's unpublished or publishing abandoned, so I can't get it, can I? I said, no, you can get it. And actually what happened was, the listings from Feral House said that the book was going to be published, but then it said abandoned. So if you went onto Waterstones, W.H. Smith's, and I think one of the other websites, Abacus Books or something, ABC Books or something, they all listed this paperback version, 230 pages long or something, for £8 or £10 or something, paperback of Where Did the Towers Go, with a different cover. Now, I wanted to get these listings removed because people were writing to me saying, oh, this book is not available, and we had to say, yes, it is available. And I wrote to the Waterstones. They directed me to another company called what was it called? Nielsen's, which is a book database. I wrote to Nielsen's and said, can we get these listings deleted because we know that this book isn't being published? And they said, no, we get our feed from the distributor or the publisher. And I wanted to find out who Feral House's distributor was in the UK. Because Feral House is a US publishing company, and they have a distributor in the UK, which I think it's called Castle Direct or something. It's in the article. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. And I wrote to them, and they said, "Oh yeah, we can change our listings," but they were giving me the runaround. They said, "Oh, it's Nielsen's," and I ended up going around in circles, so I just left it in the end. But the peculiar thing was that in finding this Feral House, that Adam Parfrey published Ian Brady Moore's Murderer's book. In the BBC article about this, of course, this created uproar because it was called the serial killer was profiting, by writing about serial killers. And a lot of people weren't very happy about that, and I would probably, if I'd known about it at the time, not been very happy either. And it gave some details of the publishing deal in the BBC article. I sent this to Dr. Judy, and she said, wow, Adam Parfrey offered Ian Brady a better publishing deal than they offered me. And guess who publishes with Feral House? Joseph P. Farrell.
Yeah.
So make of that what you will. There is more to the story, but I don't think it would be politic of me to go into it at this time. But you can verify all of that yourselves. You know, you can just go and check that all out. You don't need to take my word for it.
I know there is a lot more to it than that. But
you know,
it's what do you think of Farrell's work and the work that he exposes through his books?
Well, that's again.
Do you think it's controlled, or do you think he's?
I don't know, because I don't know. I mean,
he really pumps those books out, doesn't he?
He does. I mean, he came onto the scene a few years ago. He got some very interesting material. I'd looked into some of this Nazi stuff. It does seem, for example, that the connection between Papa Bush, George Bush's father, George H.W. Bush's father. It does seem there is a fairly clear connection between him and the Nazi regime. For example, that was in the I think in the New York Times. There was an article by John Buchanan.
And Farrell doesn't actually go along with that either, does he?
And Farrell doesn't he?
No.
Does he not? Oh well, I assumed he was.
I think that's
He's
right.
Yeah.
It's even broader than that.
Right. And I know that Farrell talks a lot about I.G. Farben, the big German company, which I think only ended up getting broken up about 10 years ago or something. The last remnants of it. And there is something in that stuff, and clearly that he talks about them going to Argentina. and that's also very interesting because there does, if you can, I'm sure you can go and find Nazi architecture in Argentina. That's not something you could make up. It's either there or it's not. I mean, I haven't been and checked that out, but I'm assuming that's true. And I understand that Peter Lavender, he was actually doing some research there in the 70s, and he was actually stopped by some Nazi sympathisers, and he was held in a captive for 48 hours or something against his will, and they're asking him all these questions. I don't think Peter Lavender is making that story up. So there's something in this Nazi connection. We all know about Operation Paperclip, and we all know Von Braun was, in working for the Apollo program and all this. That's all pretty clear cut. And the Nazi Bell Project, the several researchers seem to have come across that. Igor Witkowski, I can't remember his second name. Polish guy. Nick Cook did a lot of research with him. That's in Hunt for 0 Point. So there is definitely something in Farrell's material. I don't know where. I don't know how much bad stuff there is in there. I don't know how much good stuff there is in there. But again, one of the logical conclusions to that seems to be 9/11, and he doesn't really go there enough. He does mention it. I don't know if it's in his late book, and he has mentioned it on air.
I've never heard him mention
I've never
that.
heard him.
I've heard him shout.
He definitely mentioned. Oh, we're at 90 seconds.
Well,
right, we've got 90 seconds left on the live show,
feed,
and then we're going into podcast, so we can just carry on talking.
All right.
But for everybody who is listening
Before
live...
you go, could you give us your email again one more time? Your website?
It's Check the Evidence.
Yeah, checktheevidence.com.
Checktheevidence.com. You can stay with us, Ange, if you like.
Yeah, I'll stay for a bit, yeah.
No, Ange is the American
Oh,
lady.
yeah.
And Andrew.
And Andrew, of course, yeah. So, we've got 1 minute, so thank you to everybody who listened live. Hope you enjoyed it. The second hour was particularly good with Andrew, and
but
everybody...
Then you can listen to more in the
podcast, which will be available as soon as. Thanks to Blue Green and Jim and who was there? Mater X, who was in the chat room.
Yeah, and everyone. And
say hello to Mater X, Ange.
I will. I will.
We'll do it now before we say goodbye.
Well, let's carry on talking about that connection with Roswell and the work that is coming through from there. Because there are quite a few researchers who are coming up with these ideas that the Nazis had. That they had developed something quite special that was way beyond its years, or it was beyond the time that we are allowed to say that they had weaponry designed like that. Am I making sense? What am I rambling about?
Well, if I may sort of go on that thread, my understanding is that Joseph Farrell's book, Roswell and the Reich, I think looks into some of that. Now, I haven't read that book. I have listened to him on a couple of broadcasts talk about the book, and then that's how I tend to gain most of my information. I try and listen to these people rather than read their books, because it's cheaper.
And time consuming.
I'm listening to these things quite a lot while I'm driving around.
And
I think you get a bit more information if you can listen to how the person is presenting the information and so on. And it does seem to me a little bit, I've said what I've said about Farrell's books and so on, which doesn't really prove anything. But Farrell does seem a bit sort of Nazi obsessed somehow. I don't know. I mean, maybe it is all Nazi. I don't know. I mean, I haven't done the research that he has, or so I can't really go as far as saying that.
Because he does. I mean, he even says in his book, the book about the bell, the Brotherhood of the Bell, that half the technology went to the west and half went to the east.
Right.
But he focuses more on what happened in the west, and sort of follows the links to America and Argentina and that kind of thing. And people like Werner von Braun and the work that he was doing in the NASA field. But he never really goes into any detail about, maybe because he doesn't know anymore, but that what happened with the work that went to Russia.
Oh, it does in the Philosopher's Stone.
Oh, it does in
yeah,
the Philosopher's
yeah,
Stone,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
okay.
That actually was more the alchemical side of things that went to the Soviet Union sort of thing. The more chemical,
right,
sort of in reactors and stuff like that. And in that book, there's some great information about how outswitch was actually used to enrich uranium about 15 years before it was actually thought possible that you could enrich uranium, because there was lasers there to do it, and apparently that's what outswitch was.
We talked about that at Brotherhood of the Bell as well.
There's a massive power station.
Reproduced information.
Well, I'd have to see the evidence for that. I mean, I've never heard of that story before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd like to see some evidence for that. I mean, you've just reminded me of another interesting story though about I don't know if it's Farrell or others that have said it. That, the Nazis did have a bomb, or they nearly had a bomb by, the end of the war. They didn't quite make it, and I think I've heard him make some argument. I could be totally wrong, but I think that I've heard him make some argument. They didn't develop the nuclear stuff that much because they had this, this Bell technology, and they thought that was going to be better. So they were putting more research and resources into that, to try and
stuff, as he calls it.
Yeah, well, Farrell certainly presents the story that they had the bomb anyway,
right,
sort of thing, as a sort of backup. But he also gives the story that they shipped all the nuclear enriched uranium to the States via submarine, via Japan, and actually gave the States the technology to sort of, to do the baby, was the baby boy? What was it called?
It was called Big Boy and Little
Big Boy, yeah. And they actually, the United States didn't have enough. They were 60% short on their uranium, so the Nazis just gave them what they had.
Wow, no, I haven't heard that story.
Yeah, that's.
But there is another story as well, which is not often mentioned, and that there was a nuclear explosion at Port Chicago in 1944, which is in the US.
Yeah.
And that's worth checking out. That story. I heard an audio about that a few years ago, and that's quite interesting. They did actually have a nuke, but I think it was some kind of accident, and they couldn't really tell anyone about what it actually was. Yeah. But there was some evidence of radiation burns and stuff. It was in an arms dump of some kind.
That wasn't relation to Jack Parsons, was it?
Oh, I can't remember. It might have been. That name's vaguely familiar, but I can't remember.
Well, he's the guy that did the solid fuel for the rockets, the missiles.
Oh, right. I don't know. It could be something to do with that.
What was his lab called? It was Jet Propulsion or something.
Yeah. Oh, JPL. Oh, yeah. That'd be it. JPL. Yeah.
Well, he died in mysterious circumstances with weird bonds on him, didn't he?
Oh. I didn't know that. Is that from Farrell's books as well?
No, I've heard that from other things. Well, I've heard it via sort of Satanism and sort of being connected to Crowley and
the Golden Dawn, and they were. Yeah.
But he was certainly the one that sort of solved the puzzle of the solid fuel conundrum.
Right.
For jet propulsion, to get
that right, yeah, because they needed to, because they needed that to sort of progress.
Yeah.
But I mean that's the other thing, isn't it? That the space program at the moment, and it was with Newt Gingrich, this presidential candidate. He was saying, we're going to have moon bases and stuff. And what was all that about? What's on his mind? And then Obama's cancelled the original thing that Bush set up on the 100th anniversary of Power Flight. He's cancelled all that.
Yeah.
So we've now got the US with no manned space program, but claiming they went to the moon in '69.
Yeah.
It's just, what are people, thinking? It's crazy.
The thing that I find interesting about Farrell and any other researchers that are talking about advanced weaponry and technology is that they haven't made these links with Judy's work and the evidence that she's showing that there are anomalies of some kind of weaponry that we don't really understand having been used on 9/11. It just would seem something that you would need to really
You'd think
together.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. You'd think they'd be the first people to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
They want to sort of, discuss it in some detail.
Yeah.
This has not been the case, and we've been saying this for 4 years, really.
Yeah, you'd think that it's like, well, look, actually, we have evidence here that an advanced technology has been used. Aren't you kind of wowed? You're very wowed about the fact that they had advanced technology 50 years ago. Why aren't you wowed about that this seems to be happening now? Isn't that a natural progression in your work?
Absolutely. And I've pointed this out specifically about Richard Hoagland, who has literally tried to mess this up and mix it up. And you can see I've written that Dark Mission article about that. And I think it's fairly clear what he's up to when you get to the end of that article. And I had several people write to me after I'd posted that saying, that's the final nail in the coffin for Richard Hoagland, as far as I'm concerned.
It was interesting because I messaged you at that time saying, oh, wow, look, Richard Hoagland is talking about Judy's work. And you were like, yeah, he's talking about her work as if he knows her, but he's never met her. He's never bothered to contact her. He's never bothered to ask if he can use her work within his presentations.
Right.
He's using her images. He's using... speaking about her in first name terms as if he's met her and acting like he's a pal, and yet he's never ever been in contact with her.
Right, and I think again this is where you see into this sort of murky underworld, because if you listen to that presentation that he did, which was April last year, so almost a year ago now, and I've saved the audio on my website so you can hear his own words, you can listen to him give that presentation. And he talks about his friend Joseph Farrell, and he talks about his friend Alex Jones, and he says, I've asked Joseph Farrell for permission to mention his research, and he mentions it for like 2 minutes or something, I think it's towards the end. Didn't ask for permission to mention Judy's research, and he doesn't call her a friend in the presentation either, even though he's talking about the stuff that she's put together for, an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you see me do these talks. I talk about other people's research, but I don't do it for an hour and a half. If I do an hour and a half talk, I've probably covered about 7 or 8 different researchers, and I say which ones are which.
Yeah.
And if I don't, I say, well, I've actually nicked most of this stuff. Which is true.
Yeah.
And so there's all this stuff. And another one is Richard Dolan. Richard Dolan, I met him personally in 2009, and I told him about this research. This was before the book was published. I put in his hand printouts of the Hurricane Erin path and so on. And the next thing I heard from him, he never wrote to me, never corresponded with me. I bought him lunch for heaven's sake. It was only fish and chips, but he was in the middle of Leeds.
Yeah.
So what else are you going to get him in the middle of Leeds? Oh, it might have been sausage and chips, actually. I can't remember, but it's. I thought the guy was a nice guy. We had a good laugh. He was, and then he comes onto this radio show in September after I met him, 2 or 3 months after I'd met him, and he talks about thermite. Doesn't even mention Judy Wood, doesn't mention the hurricane, doesn't mention directed energy weapons, and yet he's been looking at these flipping documents from the Black World for 10 years. Doesn't mention it. Yeah. Something smells bad in Denmark, or whatever the expression is. And it's the same with Jim Mars. Well, not quite the same. I've got another audio clip of Jim Mars. He wrote a book, Crossfire, about the Kennedy assassination. That's what the film JFK was apparently based on. Oliver Stone's film was based on Jim Mars's book. He's written 9/11 Inside Job. He wrote that, I think, in 2005 or something. We heard him on a radio program. Somebody rang in and said, "Have you heard about the research?" He wasn't really that interested in it, and I've got an audio clip of that. So apparently, I think he's apparently since then expressed a bit more of an interest. But the only guy who's really sort of got it towards it right is John Lear. John Lear has he's sort of spoken about it quite a bit, I think. But then again, some of the stuff John Lear comes out with, he just, It's like, whoa, you know.
I don't know, John Lee.
No, John.
Yeah, he's on Project Camelot. He's did quite a long Project Camelot interview. That's quite fun to listen to.
Right.
But he's a good. I like John Lear. He seems to be a. I think from what I've heard of him, he does seem to. He knew Bob Lazar. The guy who was in Area 51. That Bob Lazar and John Lear's story is very, very interesting. If you've not listened to that, that's quite an interesting story to listen to.
Right.
And I think those guys are. I think they are honest guys. But I think John Lear tends to just. He's like. John Lear was a test pilot for the CIA. He's got every flying certificate you can get in America or something, apparently. The only guy that's got them all. And I think with him being a test pilot, my impression of him is, if you think of what a test pilot does, he has to react to the latest information or else he could be dead,
Yeah.
He's got to react, boom, not even think about it, just instinctively react to the latest information, boom, and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he seems to be with some of this information. He just like, boom, and he doesn't have time to discern it. But I think that's just my impression of him. I could be wrong, but I think he seems to be a good guy. He's certainly expressed an interest in what we've done.
Yeah.
So unlike some other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They should know better.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's every researcher's responsibility to look at.
Well, at least
all
look
research,
at it, not
Yeah.
just
Right. I mean, again, each has their own area of research and expertise, and you can't force anyone to become an expert.
No, absolutely. But
nevertheless, when you've got people looking at, secret weapon systems, black technology, 9/11, those three areas, perhaps, if I can just pluck those, you would have thought they're going to go flipping out. I've got to look at this more.
Absolutely, yeah.
Apparently not.
And alien skulls and all the like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely something stinky, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's so hard to.
Yeah.
yeah. The other thing I thought I'd mention, which is quite interesting, is somebody sent me some interesting information. About a week ago. He's one of the guys who was he was associated with the United We Strike radio. I don't know if you come across that, UWS. Have you come across that at all?
No.
All right, they're one of these. Like, they're sort of a bit Freeman stuff, They're into some of the not Freeman, but the
Freeman on the land.
Freeman on the land, that type of thing. They're sort of involved with that a little bit. But anyway, this guy sent me this document from the Rockefeller Foundation. I've got it on here.
Good old boys, them.
Yeah, it's a bit blatant actually. I was sort of like laughing when I read it. I've got to read it because it's only a short thing. Let's see if I can find it. It's really good. Here we go. Scenarios for the future of technology. Right, and this is on the Rockefeller Foundation website. Again, you can go and download it. And it's Rockefeller Foundation, right?
Yeah.
In association with the GBN, the Global Business Network. Wow, that sounds really important, doesn't it?
Yeah.
May 2010, this was published, right? It's a 54-page document, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's got the scenario framework, right? And then it's got scenario narratives. Page 17, scenario narratives. So I'm going to go down to the scenario narratives now. Page 17, here we go. Let's just go 17. So they've changed that button on it. Scenario narratives are... the scenarios that follow are not meant to be exhaustive. Rather, they are designed to be both plausible and provocative. To engage your imagination whilst also raising new questions for you about what the future might look like and feel like. First scenario narrative. I won't read all that section out. Lockstep.
Lockstep.
That's the first scenario narrative, and the subheading is a world of tighter top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback.
Bloody hell.
And then it says, in 2012, the pandemic that the world had been anticipating for years finally hit. Unlike 2009's H1N1, this influenza strain, originating from wild geese, was extremely virulent and deadly. You get the picture from that, really, don't you? You need to read that.
Good God.
So I'll go down to the next one, right? Somebody else sent this to me, he highlighted that, but Life in Lockstep. Ooh, that's a good one. Right. Go down to page 18, I'll get it. Let's see. Find this other one. Where's it gone? Oh yeah, next one, page 34, here we go. Hack Attack. Hack Attack. An economically unstable and shock-prone world in which governments weaken, criminals thrive, and dangerous innovations emerge. Da, da, da. Sounds like the start of BBC News.
Yeah.
Sounds like Spaceship Earth at Adcot.
Yeah. And it says, this section says, devastating shocks like September the 11th, the Southeast Asian tsunami of 2004, and the 2010 Haiti earthquake had certainly primed the world for sudden disasters, but no one was prepared for a world in which large-scale catastrophes would occur with such breathtaking frequency. The years 2010 to 2020 were dubbed the Doom Decade, for good reason. This is the key bit. The 2012 Olympic bombing.
There you go.
Bingo! Which killed 13,000, was followed closely by an earthquake in Indonesia, killing 40,000, a tsunami that almost wiped out Nicaragua, and the onset of the West China famine, caused by this once-in-a-millennium drought linked to climate change. Got them all in there. So we've got hack attack, viruses, terrorism, Olympic bombing. That's pretty good going, isn't it?
Yeah, man, that'll do.
At Rockefeller Foundation. Eh? That great philanthropic organisation. Eh? It's just brilliant. So you can go read that and get, and read it to your kids.
Yeah.
Bedtime
I think we should make that phone call to the White Heart organisation pretty soon, don't we? And just tell them to go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
We've got a contingency plan for the 2012 Olympics for something, I think it was, I can't remember exactly, but Ian Crane was saying for like 15 to 30,000 deaths.
Well, you just said 30,000,
Did you just say that? Oh, right, yeah, I didn't catch that, sorry.
Well, a bomb. Was that a bomb, Andrew?
Well, that's what they said, Olympic bombing, but it's interesting because I've talked about this a little bit in the last couple of weeks with a particular reason, because that obviously they've been hyping up Iran again and hyping up Syria.
Oh
yeah. Sorry,
moving the chess pieces.
Yeah, exactly. These leaders, they've been told, what's going on. They know what they've got to do. They if they're told to jump, they'll say they'll ask how high, and so they've been winding up Iran and so on. They did it in 2007. They tried to do it and failed, thankfully. But what I wanted to mention was in 2007. There was this particular sequence of events, and somebody pointed out to us, again, this is not me being clever or anything, it was just stuff that was pointed out to me, and I just sort of gave it a little shove, so to speak. There was a continuity of government legislation passed in, I think it was about February-March 2007 by George Bush, and he was transferring the responsibility for the continuity of government from some department in Washington to another department, like it was from Homeland Security to another department, or the other way around. I can't remember which way around it was. And I've put this into an article called "A Touch of the Hidden Hand" because it was quite important. And we had Michael Chertoff, who was the head of Homeland Security, saying, since the breakup of the Soviet Union, they've had all these nuclear weapons arsenals. We don't quite know, they've all been, tidied up, and we reckon that Al-Qaeda's got some of these nukes, So we reckon Al-Qaeda have got nukes. And then we had Stephen E. Jones, the physicist.
Good old Steve.
Good old Steve boy. Choir boy, as we call it. Because he looked like one.
What'd you call him?
Choir boy.
Choir boy.
And his little giggle and everything. And he did a presentation with Dr. Bill Deagle of NutriMedical, the well-known disinformer. Oh, did I say that? No, I didn't say that. He and Jones did this presentation at the Vancouver 9/11 Truth Conference in June 2007. We've got a video of this, so again you can go and watch the video. And Deagle said 22 US cities have been pre-wired with nukes. He knew because somebody in the intelligence services had told him.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Homeland Security weren't interested in talking to Bill Deagle, though, and arresting him with such information. You would have thought they would, really, wouldn't you? But what he said was that they both agreed that there was a high likelihood that a U.S. city was going to be nuked. You know, it wasn't Al-Qaeda. Jones said, oh, they were going to blame it on Iran, you know, and then what they knew was that this wouldn't be the government story, that would be untrue. So what they wanted was 9/11 truthers. You know, they would need to go out to the nuclear bombed city and get a dust sample and send it to Steve Jones, because then they would be able to prove what it actually was. So the 9/11 truthers, being as they are, you know, would go out to a city where a nuclear bomb had gone off, irradiate themselves, collect some dust, and send it to Steve Jones. That's what Steve Jones proposed at this video, on this video, which you can watch. So anyway, you know, another long story. Jones is talking about nuking a city. Michael Chertoff is talking about Al-Qaeda nukes. Bush has talked about continuity of government. There's something about to go off here, and if you look at what happened at the World Trade Center and the pictures that Judy Woods collected, it looks nuclear, doesn't it? It looks like...
Bits of it do, yeah. Bits of it do.
And you know, you've had Ed Ward, you've had Dimitri Karlov, oh yeah, it's nuclear. People have said it's nuclear.
So they're going to fake a nuclear event.
So what we thought, Judy and I had some discussion, you know, what if? We didn't know, you know, we had no information this was going to happen. We didn't have any inside sources like Bill Deagle. You know, we don't have those things. We don't have these people feeding us information. We just go on the regular stuff that's out there. And so we wanted to go on Ambrose Lane and said, look, Ambrose Lane was a US talk show host on Power XM channel at the time. He's dead now, sadly. He died in 2010, I think.
You've been on his show before, though, haven't you?
Well, I went on twice. Judy went on about 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
Before he died, and we were going to go on there and say, hey, look, you know, we can see all these things lining up. What if they were to use the weapon on another building, you know, wherever, somewhere, we don't know where, and say, oh yeah, an Al-Qaeda nuke's gone off. You know, they could get away with it. They could get away with it.
Yeah.
And basically, that's all we were going to say. You know, we weren't going to say it was going to happen. And why I'm going through that long explanation is, Ambrose, we were invited to go on his show, Power XM channel, big audience, probably several 100,000 listeners, maybe more. We never got on his program. The day that we were due to go on, in fact, Ambrose Lane parked in the parking lot. He went into the station, and his boss said to him, Ambrose, you're fired. Before we even went on air. And he said, why am I fired? He says, well, all I can tell you, Ambrose, is if I don't fire you, they're going to fire me from the network. So, you know, I'm afraid I have to fire you. And he never went back on the network. And we never got on. Same day. In fact, you know, within hours of, or an hour of when we were due to go on. So I think somebody had been listening in to what we were going to say. I could be wrong, could be a coincidence, but he wasn't given an explanation. So what if, that's a few years ago now, people have forgotten, you know, they've ramped people up a bit, they've got the Iran thing going. What if they're going to try it at the Olympics? You know, like Rick Clay was suggesting.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, the domes are prime.
You know, Rick Clay's research, as he pointed out,
exactly, yeah.
You know, the few things I'll just mention for people who might be listening. 1972 Olympics. Again, you can go and verify this for yourself. What happened? 11 Israelis were killed. 11.
Yeah.
What was the name of the group that did it? Black September.
Black September, yeah.
You know?
No.
And look at the 1984 Olympics with the UFO landing at the end.
Yeah.
No.
The alien getting out.
What's that all about?
Well, I went to see a talk by Ian Crane. He suggested that the Millennium Dome might be the thing because I think it's the 3rd of March. It's going to be full of virginal gymnasts from all over the world. So that'll be
Oh, really?
sacrifice, you know.
3rd of August.
Well, it's 3rd of August. I don't know.
Well, I think it's important to get these things on the table and say, you know.
Well, you could prevent it.
Well, I think we can, frankly, and I think we did. I mean, there's an article I wrote about the Iran hostage capture from 2007, and I have a feeling that we managed to raise enough awareness to shut that attempt down. And then again, if you Google questioning the Iran hostage capture, you should come up with that article I wrote, which again I didn't steal from somebody else because I just summarised what he wrote, and that's quite an interesting set of events that unfolded around that as well. Yeah, I like the guy who went into the Montreal Parliament. This was a few years ago. You might have seen this clip. I think it's on YouTube. He got into the Montreal Parliament, and they were talking about some extra security measures on the subway system there, the underground system. And this guy just went up and says, look, you know, we know that these security companies are run by Israeli groups. You know, Verin was running the security cameras, CCTV cameras. And he says, if you come out with some story, if there's a bomb attack, you know, and you come out with some story or other, we won't believe you. Whatever it is that you tell us, we're not going to believe you. You know, and that's what the guy said. And he said it about 3 times, you know, in the Parliament. And I thought it was just fantastic. You know, he just said, look, we're just not going to believe you. He wasn't abusive. He wasn't rude. He just told them to the straight, we're not going to believe you. You know.
Was that in '78?
No, that was recently. That was. I'm not talking. I've sort of switched from talking about the Olympics to a more recent time. I think that particular video, I think it was about 2007 that he went into Parliament. I think there was a small group of about 5 or 6 of them. It was a public gallery, you know. He didn't.
Yeah. Well, there's that little girl as well who goes in and talks about sort of money and stuff. Have you seen her? Same Parliament.
I can't remember if I've seen that.
She's pretty good. I mean, she got a bit sort of wound up in the Occupy thing eventually, which was a bit disappointing. But she was quite good. She just went in and started shouting at the Prime Minister sort of thing, and then she got on the news and stuff like that, and she was just saying, you know, why is this money thing? What are we doing? Why creating money out of nothing? You know, why is it just creating a screen and then you're telling us it's our fault? So it was really good.
Oh, I don't think I've seen.
I think she got a bit sort of quoted by the Occupy sort of lot, but same sort of thing, I guess. The Canadians are they're pretty good. The Canadians, aren't they?
Oh, you just reminded me of another story as well, which I'll tell you if you want. It was related to Dr. Judy and the Occupy movement.
Yes, do.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite funny, this. Right. It was, let's see, it was last year, last June. Now, we came into contact with somebody, I say we, myself and Dr. Judy, with somebody called Tracy Postert. That's like a poster on the wall with a T at the end. And her other name is Tracy Blevins. And she came into contact with Dr. Judy in 2007 at that Madison conference, which I've made into a DVD. I've given out lots of copies of that. She's got purple hair. So if you go and watch that Madison conference from 2007, you will find this Tracy Poster, or Tracy Blevins. I can't remember which one was a married name. She's separated from her husband now, apparently. So she got interested in Dr. Judy's research, and she started emailing various things, and she started this blog, on Blogger, called Dr. Judy Wood Science.blogspot.com. And some stuff was posted on there, some was okay, some of it was a bit dodgy, but it was on the whole it was okay. But then she started all these email spitfights with people, sort of sending them sort of, challenging messages and being a bit slightly unpleasant. Nothing really bad, but just not, a bit, not really what you'd want, really. Yeah, a little bit sort of, annoying, basically. Anyway, and I mean, I think that got a little bit out of hand. But anyway, there wasn't anything we'd not really seen before. Anyway, so the next thing is, it was a couple of years that went on. It turns out somehow she had got invited to London to give a talk on Dr. Judy Wood's research, and this happened last summer in June or July, and I actually found out about it by accident.
While here?
Pardon?
While Judy was actually here?
No, this was before. This was in June last year. Judy was over in October last year.
Yeah.
And I found out about it because there was somebody I know in London, and she said, "Oh, we're going to have this 9/11 meeting, and it's somebody talking about 9/11 energy weapons or something." And you know, I say nobody told me. Not that I necessarily need to be told, you know, because I'm not part of any group or anything. And so what? You know, I've got a website and blah blah blah. You know, this talk apparently took place, you know, and fair enough, you know, somebody's talking about Judy Wood's research, not necessarily a bad thing. But then, just after the talk had finished, I got a call from Richard D. Hall. You know, he does, you know, Richard D. Hall, do you? He does richplanet.net. And,
yeah.
And he was with one of the people I know, Belinda Mackenzie. He was actually in her car. And he says, "Andrew, I've just been to this talk on 9/11 about Judy Wood's research, and they showed this video." And I said, "Yeah." And I says, "Do you know anything about it?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "It was a lady with purple hair." I said, "Yeah." He said, "It wasn't very good." And I said, "Yeah." And then this Belinda's saying, "Oh, have you got any more books left? Have you got any more books left?" And I said, "No," because at the time we basically got 2 shipments of Dr. Judy Wood's book. One got to me in April last year, now 250 I think it was, or was it 200, I can't remember. Sold all those, mainly through Richard Hall's website, because he'd supported the research and done a program on it. A couple of programs actually, maybe even 3. And we sold most of the book through his website, so we didn't have any left. But this person, Belinda, who I knew her quite well, she was suddenly asking for me for books after this talk had finished, which was a bit odd. You'd think that if she was wanting to get, you know, word out about the book, she might actually ask me before the talk if I had any books left and if I could send her any, which of course I would have been willing to do. I would have been willing to sit in the corner, you know, whilst this person gave the talk. I wouldn't, you know, everyone's got a right to speak about this, and maybe just hand out a few books at the end, you know. Never asked. So I don't know who paid Tracy Blevin's plane fare over to the UK. I mean, you don't get over to the UK cheaply. It costs you at least a couple £100, probably more.
More, yeah.
You know, so that was a bit odd. But then what happened is we discovered that Tracy posted that she lives in New York City. We already knew that, but there was an article about her posted mentioning her name, and guess what? She was in the Occupy Wall Street movement, and the article got into the mainstream press because she was an Occupy protester with a banner saying she had a science PhD. I think she's got a PhD in plant biology, I think. And she had a sign saying, "PhD in plant biology can't get work," and somebody on Wall Street hired her. So this was the same Tracy poster that we knew in the Occupy movement, holding up a banner, getting hired by some Wall Street executive and getting in the papers about it. I mean, is it me? You know, I mean, is that not weird? That there's something going on there. You know, there's something weird going on that she gets over to this country and so on. Yeah. You know, I'm not told about it.
The plant in Wall Street that gets the job from it, sort of thing.
Right. They got some good press from it.
Classic one.
There's something going on there, you know. I mean, just going back to the London thing, I could have done my talk, you know, that I did with you guys for the 9/11 Finding the Truth about the cover-up after hers. You know, I wouldn't have. If she wanted to talk about Judy Wood stuff, well, she, you know, nobody can stop her. You know, she may have not done it perhaps as well as it could be done, but you know, I make mistakes in stuff as well. You know, I don't get everything right. But why didn't somebody, you know, this person knows me, you know, they've known me for several years. There's something weird going on, you know.
It's like on these programs, like the X Factor series of programs, where they, you know, supposedly have these just
kids from the street, who's on a journey.
Any old person from the street coming forward and doing their little talent thing. Well, a friend of ours is a juggler. He's got an agent, and his agent was contacted by the X Factor talent
that was
scout.
Britain Got Talent.
Oh, sorry.
But it's the same sort of thing,
But yeah, it's a similar thing.
Oh, okay.
He was contacted by the Britain's Got Talent scouts. His agent was contacted to provide acts to kind of bolster out the show.
And he was actually told how long he was going to be in for before he got voted out by the public.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. Said, you've been there for about 3 or 4 weeks, how's that? And he was like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
You know, 3 weeks on the telly.
He got paid for that, got some exposure, and
But I had to sign his solo. He has to sort of go.
Yeah, he did have to sign his.
A third of his.
Yeah.
True.
No one going to Mel Hicks music.
Had to sign a third of his what?
Oh, yeah, he's earnings from, you know, related to the show.
Ah, so they wanted
a little sort of agent cut sort of thing for the exposure.
Ah, right.
A little deal. Or if he does, he didn't have to, you know, necessarily give.
Because they know if they just had people from the general public, the shows would be so rubbish.
It'd be rubbish, yeah. You've got to beef out with a few things.
They actually have to get proper performers, not just your general public, proper performers up there.
You just reminded me of another little thing, which is, I'm not going to go into a big long story again, but there used to be this thing, which I suppose is like a forerunner of Britain's Got to, I know we've had forerunners, but there was this thing in the US called the Gong Show.
Yeah.
The
Gong Show. Yeah, man. Great.
Because that was kind of, because you know who the host was, don't you? Do you remember the host of that show?
Yeah, I do, but no, Dick thingy.
No, it's Chuck Barris. And he was an alleged CIA agent. That came up a couple of years ago, you know.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. It's really weird, but yeah. I mean, why he'd end up running something like the Gong Show, you know?
A little handshake, you know, thanks for your services.
Well, yeah, but you know,
it's manipulation of the masses, isn't it? Keeping people's minds sedated with these kind of shows.
Well, it's no.
And probably a little bit of child porno running at the same time.
Well, it's well bandied around at the CIA and Hollywood, you know, our good old bedfellows.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
With Disney and the like sort of thing.
Yeah, that's it. And there was I went to this exopolitics thing in August, and there was a guy there called Robbie Graham, and he talked about that. There's that I forget which film it was, but one of the Disney films. Oh God, which one was it? They actually had a guy, a CIA agent, on the set for the whole film. You know, there was no secret about this. Yeah.
Was it?
No, it wasn't that one. I think it was an earlier one.
Was it Chicken Little?
Well, that's animated.
I don't think so. It was an earlier one. I think it was in the 70s, I think. Or maybe the 80s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'd have to go onto his blog. His blog's called silverscreensources.blogspot.com.
Oh, yeah, no.
It wasn't Return to Witch Mountain or something.
Okay. It might have been that. Yeah, it might have been.
Because that is a weird film.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That is such a weird film.
Is it? I haven't seen the new one because that's a remake, isn't it? They made one with in the 70s.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that you could possibly link it to kids with is the fact that it's got 2 kids in it. But it's really not a kids' film.
Right. I've not seen the updated, because there's actually 3 films, I think. Then there's the Escape to Witch Mountain, which was the very first one.
Yeah.
To Witch Mountain.
Yeah.
And there's a remake, I think.
Yeah, Return to Witch Mountain is the most recent one. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not seen that film, but I heard about it. I tend to sort of not watch these things now.
Yeah. To watch it, it's bizarre.
I haven't seen it for years. I've seen it years ago, but
that's the old one.
Yeah, the old one.
Yeah.
But they remade The Day the Earth Stood Still, didn't they, with Keanu Reeves?
I watched that a couple of weeks ago.
The Day the Actor Stood Still.
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty bad, actually. I expected it might be a bit more interesting, but
no, it was.
I mean, the fact.
I love that original film, though.
Yeah,
I tried that when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's right. It is. It is a very interesting film. said to be a trial disclosure by some of the UFO researchers as well, and see how people would react. But the joke about the Keanu Reeves version is the Earth didn't stand still.
Yeah.
Nothing stopped.
Nothing
They had this whatever it was, that cloud of thing which wiped everything off, but the power didn't get cut again. I thought they were going to cut out all the power, but no, I didn't like that.
For a bit, didn't they? At the beginning, yeah, for a little bit.
Did they? Oh, I can't remember. I might have missed the beginning because
he stops all the big robot dude comes out and stops all the guns from going off and all that, doesn't he? And
yeah.
Pull it out of piano.
Well, what are your thoughts on the sunspot activity? Have we spoken about this? I think we only mentioned it.
I think we only touched on it briefly. I mean, again, I mean,
it's caused problems in Canada, hasn't it, recently?
Oh, has it? I haven't heard the latest, but I know that it has been. I get the NASA updates, and I know they've been saying various coronal mass ejections and stuff. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you know, we know that they've got other stuff up there, and they can do stuff, and they seem to be using it as another fear card.
Okay.
To some extent, at least, and I noticed that the NASA has been. Oh, there was a BBC. Yeah, in fact, it got onto the BBC News the other day. I caught Radio 2 News, and it was even on Radio 2 News.
I had it on Radio 2 News on Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, they were saying, you know, it could disrupt electrical system. I never heard them say that before. Not to mine. Well, not to mine.
I have. I can remember hearing them say that in the sort of 80s time, because my dad was into. He was a radio ham. And so he was always interested in when there would be this kind of activity going on.
Right,
you know, I got a comment on that, actually.
Yeah, I remember talking about that.
Our local radio station actually has this message they put out twice a year. I don't know, I think they put it out more than twice a year, but they say, twice a year the sun affects our communication, so you may lose the radio station here in the next couple minutes. Nothing to worry about. Kind of one of those.
They could just tell us that the sun's really active, and then just use the things that they can use to create the effects of sunspot activity on the Earth.
Hey, Andrew,
bending the ionosphere.
I had a question for you. I think I remember hearing somewhere that throughout history, like the large wars can kind of be tracked along with really active times in the sun. Like as the sunspot activity is ramping up, something seems to, it affects humanity somehow, and I don't know, people seem to war more at those times. Are you familiar with that at all?
Not greatly. I think I've heard probably the similar thing to you, that somebody's done this, correlation between this. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't rule it out. Again, if you go back to this electric universe model, we're obviously, as you know, we're influenced by electric fields, and you can put electrodes on people's heads, and all this stuff we were talking about earlier, mobile phone interfering with people's mental processes, and so I mean possibly the sunspot cycle does influence people's behaviour, but
I think misdirected solar energy in the form of like magnetic electromagnetic energy, as in Kundalini, if it's not directed in the right way, then it will turn into the direction of anger and that kind of emotion, that kind of action, and that's the same thing. It ties in with the electric universe. Carry on. Sorry.
One of the things that kind of struck me there was that it seems like throughout history, the elites or the priests, the higher ups or whatever, who always use that knowledge of what's going on up in space against the regular folk, and why would that not be going on these days?
That's a good point.
With the microcosm, it's all affects. It affects us.
Yeah.
That's a great point, though, Reset.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I have heard of, and I only heard of this not too long ago through Paul LaViolette, and you can Google this, and it was called the Carrington event, and that happened, I think, in the 19th century. I can't remember exactly when it was. You just Google Carrington event, and you'll find it. But that was basically some type of, either some large coronal mass ejection or, some huge solar flare, and that did actually create some physical disruption at ground level. I think there were some primitive electrical systems then, some primitive telegraph systems or something, and it caused some quite large currents, induced large currents, I think, in some of this equipment, and caused some things to burn out. And obviously we didn't have the sort of sensitive electronics then that we do now. And you can Google that. So there is a real risk that that sort of thing could happen. And I think all these underground bases and so on, they were probably much better protected from that sort of event.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So, what Reset was saying about, in higher charged times, such as this, are we likely to get a war then?
Well, we can't say. That's up to us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think it depends on a number of factors, and I mean, we could see them beating the drums for war. They've been doing it now since 9/11, and
of course, we've been at war for.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, it's silly of me to mention 9/11 because there's always been these wars going on, but they seem to have tried to characterise them in a particular way since 9/11, I suppose. I suppose I could argue that. But I mean, it's just this war mentality, isn't it? That's running the planet, basically.
It's an egoic mentality that's fed by, like I say, the misuse of the energy, their energy. Yeah, it's something, it's a construct that is just inside us. That certain people, maybe what John Lash would call archonic energies, would gravitate to, a reptilian state, and that is if you've got heightened sun activity, that's the sun. That's why we're here. That is that is Ra. That is the whole thing, and that's going to affect us in the quality of our consciousness and how we react to things. And that's and all the fear mongering and all that kind of predictive program that's put out into the collective consciousness, or the which is a reflection of the Akasha. It's gonna impact.
Even suggesting that there could be war.
If you're looking for, if you're looking for, you're saying our harp or whoever, creating these illusionary effects of something, solar flares. Where. If you're looking for that, then it's going to be there. Because it goes back to who Jake was meant to be on earlier, synchronicity. Because it's there in the Akasha, and it's like it's the Seigate of the times with kind of media impressions that we get all the time on our egoic self. And that's part of the problem. And that probably does tie in with sun activity, and probably has been manipulated by those who seek that egoic satisfaction.
Great point.
I think this whole underlying question of energy and the various forms of energy, be it electrical energy directly that we use to power motors and so on, or whether it's some more subtle energy like orgone energy or a conscious energy.
Well, it's definitely bundles of different kinds of energy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the psychopaths that are running the world, they know that that's the big key to everything. That they need to control. They need to control as much as possible the whole range of energy. That all these energies, they need to control them, because once people get wind of what you can do with that energy and how you can manipulate it and so on, how it manipulates you, then, when they gain an increase in awareness on that, they ain't going to be as controllable. It's like the cattle being able to sort of nose up to the gate and lift off the latch that locks them in or whatever, because they're going to get out of the field. And that's a sort of analogy, I think, that they've got to keep under wraps. So any talk of this thing, like with the 9/11 stuff being weaponized, or cold fusion making free energy, or these akashic field that you can access all the information in the universe ever. No, that's just that's all rubbish. You can't talk about that. You're not allowed to think that could actually be where it's all at, so to speak.
Yes, it's so long as we don't know how to, or people aren't educated as to how to use these kind of energies or be aware of these things, then yes, you can easily manipulate the results.
Right. And I think at some level this is where, we mentioned earlier this Joseph Farrell's book, The Philosopher's Stone. This, and this is where the energy issues are where all the occult and the alchemy and the consciousness issues, they're all to do with energy as well. So they're all
totally. And
I think if there's more of a realization of that we've got like a spectrum between the sort of really esoteric stuff that you can't really sort of experiment with repeatedly, scientifically, you can't do it. You can't have the same set of circumstances necessarily and repeat.
You can't verify it with exterior apparatus.
No. But you got that side of energy, which is real, right up to the, like I say, the more sort of physical energies that power motors and so on. And I think you have to see it as a continuous spectrum. And it appears that you can translate, electrical energy into other forms of energy and vice versa. That appears to be the case.
Well, of course you can, yeah.
Well, our whole bodies work on electrical pulses, don't they? And our brain is just electrical pulses.
And electrical transference as well, like you were talking about,
Yeah, but that interfaces with something else. I mean, just to give you an example, from John Hutchison's experiments, it's just coming off the top of my head. One of the curious things he noticed fairly early on when he was messing about, because he had a Geiger counter going, he noticed at some point that when he'd set all his equipment going, the background radiation count would drop.
Yeah.
Which shows you that there's some kind of other effect going on. In other words, the energy systems that he's manipulating are not. All he's been doing is manipulating electrical and magnetic fields from this known equipment. He's not like having a seance or or doing psychic energy. But that's having a side effect on some other form of energy, which manifests itself in the cosmic ray background radiation.
Ether,
So all those areas of research, and he's not the only one that's done it.
It's all a manifestation of the word, from the logos, because in Hebrew they talk about the letters having a circuit, like the actual letters when they're put together in certain ways have like an electrical circuit. A current runs through it, and energy.
Really?
And if one of the letters is broken, then that breaks the circuit. So they have a chart, the way they decide whether it's a pure letter, a pure hieroglyph. They have a child decide and look at the letter and say, that's kosher or not, and then they use that letter because it makes a complete difference to the whole scripture if the circuit's broken because of the current that flows through it.
Wow,
it's all energy. It's all the word. It's all vibrations. It's all that manifests at a lower form as electrical energy. And it's whatever you want to call it. But it's all connected, man.
I mean, one of the things that Michael Cremo talks about. He's written that book, Forbidden Archaeology. He talks about the descent of man, and he mentions that in past times we were more spiritual, we were less physical, than we are now, and we've kind of, been dragged down into this physical form.
Externalized everything.
Yeah.
We're giving up our sovereignty.
Yeah.
The technologies that we created to work for us, which we end up being slaves to.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if any of you listened to the Troy McLaughlin thing on Red Ice with the Saturn Death Cult.
Yeah. Amazing,
That was really interesting. I thought the first part to me was more interesting. So I think the second half Well, he did 4 hours altogether, I think. The first 2 hours probably to me were more interesting, because the second half he kind of just did all the sort of depth, the depth culture and that, which all the other people seem to have covered that quite well. But what interested me was the notion that 65,000 years ago, this configuration of the solar system was totally different, and Saturn was hovering over where the North Pole is,
Yeah.
and we had this cloud of plasma around the planet, which gave this purplish, glow to everything. There's no real night and day as we have now.
And a constant springtime.
And a constant springtime. That's how I described it, isn't it? And but why I was trying to tie that into what Vic just said was this idea that Kronos, which is Saturn. And then Kronos, they claim he said this as well, and they said that the Kronos, as in the Saturn god, and the word Kronos for time, they have no, according to linguists, it's just coincidence. There's no difference. There's no relation between them, But he basically said that when what Saturn was a flare star, and when it flared, it became like a second sun, or the main sun actually. And the other sun came into the solar system, around this time, 65,000 years ago or something. And Saturn was really our sun, and it was Saturn that then changed and allowed us to have time, because when Saturn changed, that's when we had this cycle of night and day, and that was the start of this where we started to measure things, and that because we started to measure things, that laid the foundation for money and trade and that and so on. And I found that really interesting. I find it difficult to sort of take in because looking at the astronomy side of it, you'd think you'd see more evidence for something that recent, because the standard view is that the solar system hasn't changed for 4 billion years or something. But we don't really know, do we? It's just what we're told. We don't know how fast things have changed in the solar system. All we see is, if you look at observational astronomy with instrumentation, it only goes back 300 years, or so, 400 years maybe. So we don't really know what the solar system looked like before that. I know we've got the written mythologies